fans hate hearing those kind of stories.
Yeah. Oh, how the tables have turned. Look at us. We're all talking about how inhales are hard to do. We want to do them, and it's, you know. And like something about like that mind frame, it immediately clicked in my head. I was like, I know how to do it now. And I didn't even try it. Like I didn't like attempt to produce any sounds or whatever. Bro, we hated it. No, we hated it. Yeah. We were not happy about it. I think probably during the peak of its like popularity, I actually took it off YouTube for like 2 years. I was so sick of it.
So you got I declare goddess ...
We're probably upset about it. You know? It's a purpose-driven thing. I've tried to get away from music a couple times. It's in my bones. I've taken breaks from music. I've sold all my shit. And like eventually it's like I'm back in it.
Real quick before we start, I just wanted to mention that we do these podcast recordings live on stream. We stream every single Wednesday at 6 p.m. EST on Twitch. It's an opportunity for you guys to come hang out, interact, and ask your questions directly to all of our guests. We also have a Discord if you want to keep talking more about deathcore and metalcore, or simply to keep up with everything that we're doing, upcoming guests, and all that jazz. I'll leave links to both of these things in the description wherever you are watching or listening. And with that out of the way, please enjoy this episode. Welcome to episode 8 of the Brutality podcast. My name is Dom. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Yan. Hello, Yan.
Hi, my name is Yan, and I'm a weirdo, and I'm here, and I'm glad I'm here.
That's what's up. This week, we are joined by a man who goes by many names, the one and only Big Chocolate, Cam. We got, the man behind Disfiguring the Goddess, Gorehammer, all of the above. Cam, welcome to the podcast. How you doing, man?
I'm doing better than good. Thank you for having me.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this with us. You're a busy guy. I know you're a busy guy. You seem to take the time to do all of these things, but goddamn, man, I don't know how you find the time to do it.
Just got to make it. Pretty much.
Gotta make it.
Yeah.
No, we appreciate, man. To be real, we're all super excited. You had a big influence on deathcore, but also on us. So it's a big deal to know your influences, where it all started and stuff like that. So extremely stoked, man.
That's awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that,
man. Welcome, we've been. Me and Yan, just a super quick backstory. I mean, we met not that long ago. Like it's been like 6 months or some shit like that. But the reason we kind of bonded was MySpace ultimately, we both kind of grew up on MySpace deathcore and the whole everything. I mean, ultimately there was like grindcore on MySpace too, the scene bands, all these things, that was like a whole, it was all jumbled together, but that's really where we both kind of connected our nostalgia for, that specific time period. And I think I think it's safe to say that for both of us, Disfiguring the Goddess was a part of that, and we'll get into, all the iconic shit you did, even as far as like fucking 2008, 2009 and stuff like that, which was kind of like the tail end of MySpace, but I think still left like a big mark on that whole scene, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're part of one of my, because I'm doing videos on YouTube about the MySpace era. I did videos about, Despised Icon and all that stuff. Like I'm kind of documenting right now the MySpace era because no one was doing it, and to me it was a shame. So I was like, let's document all those crazy bands. And I did a video about I Declare War, right? So when I was talking about Jonathan, I was like, there's no way I'm not showing that freaking video on there. Like for sure it's part of the video. So it's like, and I feel like for a lot of people, including myself, this video was actually a game changer in terms of like, at least for me, it was the first time I was hearing that kind of vocals. It was like literally the first, I didn't even know it was possible. So I was like, okay, we can go heavier. It doesn't even sound human, but I'm there for it. And I think it was the same reaction for a lot of people being like, okay, we have a new level of heavy available now. Like how can we do it? Was kind of the reaction, I think.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's funny because like when we did that video, it was kind of, I mean, it wasn't a joke, but it was like very impromptu. The guitar player Evan is actually from the town that I'm from as well, which is a pretty small town. Shout out Minden, Nevada. And his dad lived on the street over from us. So, and then the guitar player in Disfiguring at the time, we both played guitar in it. And he was a bit older, as Evan was a bit older, and they were in a band back in high school. So we knew about I Declare War because we knew Evan. And so they're coming through on tour or whatever. And we're like, we got to make a song. Because, you know, we were always making songs hella fast and we were into YouTube and stuff. And we just were like, started working on the song. They came over, they laughed at the song in progress. They added some parts. Like we kind of had like everyone who played guitar play on the song and write a section. That's kind of why that song is like section. And then the very end, John and I just did it. I think it was either one or two takes. I don't really remember too well, but it was so like happy-go-lucky the whole time. And then the video got so popular. And this was like before the kind of the current era where if you have something that goes popular, you're like, yes. But at the time we were like,
almost didn't even mean anything. Yeah.
Bro, we hated it. No, we hated it. Yeah. We were not happy about it. Like, because Disfiguring never toured. So we never dealt with it, but Evan was like, dude, that's all anyone wants to talk to us about. Like, it like overshadowed
them going on tour. Yeah. It was like,
just overshadowed everything.
Talk about I Declare War. It's like, let's talk about this thing.
Yeah. They had a couple of moments like that with that Christmas album they did too. So I'm sure they were like,
I mean, that still comes up all the time too. Yeah.
But like now that's like what you do, you know, that's what everyone does to try to get like some clip or something. And we got it. And we were like I think probably during the peak, maybe of its like popularity, maybe like 2012 or something, I actually took it off YouTube for like 2 years. I was so sick of it.
That's what I was looking at just before you joined the call. Like it's like an upload that came back like 4 or 5 years after it actually came out. Like it was off for a few years and still, you know, it speaks volumes. You know, it's sitting at like 2.3 million views right now on a video that, you know, it came out.
Yeah.
Like that was re-uploaded like 5 years later, you know, like,
we suppressed it. We suppressed it.
It went viral again, you know, like,
yeah, but it's cool now. Like now with all the hindsight, it's, you know, and like, Jan, what you were saying, it's cool to hear all like the influence it's had. It's funny. Cause like, I mean, I don't know what I Declare War thought of their band, but I don't think I really thought of the term deathcore until like much later. Like, you know, maybe I don't even remember like when I started to really think about that as a term. But we were just, I mean, we were into everything. We were into obviously like what you call now MySpace deathcore, but to us it was like newer death metal. It, you know, like the tag to me was on MySpace. It was death metal / hardcore / grindcore. Like that was the genre. And you could like switch things out. Like I think Disfiguring
death metal,
was
grindcore, experimental. I have here on the
we switched to that
pull it up here
with all the
chat. And
hell yeah. See, and like that's the other thing about documenting it is like MySpace. Like now everything on the internet is like pretty much there forever. You know, where like the whole MySpace thing is, unless you want to use a Wayback Machine, it's like done.
It's gone, man. It's
all the music.
You don't got the music no more. That's the main part, right?
I wish we could go back. You know, pictures. People would put like blogs and stuff like that.
The blogs. Even these blogs here, we've got this thing's kind of funny. So we've got I Declare Goddess ...
We're probably upset about we're probably like shut up.
And like this other fake DTG full length in quotation marks. I'm like, I want to read these, but you know, it's all gone. It's all
everything's probably all salty.
Yeah,
I remember people kidding around also, like you would have this super heavy deathcore band, and in influences they would write like Nickelback and like some like a lot of bands were just like writing anything, just whatever, like we're emo, and then you click and it's like, it's super heavy. There was this, it's like if no one was really taking themselves too seriously. So everybody was okay with goofing around, being themselves, doing videos, updates and stuff. It was this great era of just, let's do whatever.
Way less serious back in the day, that's for sure.
Like, you know, like little projects like I Set My Friends on Fire, stuff like that. Just people kidding around and doing shit. Like, it was pretty cool. It's I wish MySpace would have kept, you know, like we could search right now and just go back and listen to the music, and so it would be great.
Yeah, it was a great moment in culture, that's for sure. And
you've probably got quite a few shitty random demos that got obliterated that don't exist anymore off of MySpace, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, mainly like side projects and stuff, because it was so easy to start a side project back then. Now it's like you got to do so many things to, you know,
just to
share
get it off
music.
the ground. Yeah.
So some of that, I'm sure there were some tunes. There's actually some really, really early Disfiguring stuff that is totally gone. Like before like I even did vocals in the project, or at this time it was a band.
Yeah.
But like before I even did vocals, like I wish I could hear that shit.
Yeah. I like the first things. It's kind of funny actually, because looking back through like the discography for Disfiguring the Goddess, like you see all kinds of shit especially from the early days in terms of like what the demos were and what the names were for the demos and what actually exists or not. Like, you know, at the end of the day, I'll just like resort to whatever you wrote on your website, you know, but you see pop up on like discogs.com and stuff like that. These like random ass fucking like, 2-song EP here with like these other versions of these same songs and then a cover and then these other, you know, it's got like all these things, but all that stuff is kind of like gone now. You know, that's kind of like, that's the main thing that I dislike about everything going, you know, on the internet and then on these platforms that, you know, once they're gone, like we know we're still doing the same thing. Spotify is not going to be around in 50 years, you know, like maybe it'll be something else, but who knows, you know, it's like, it's always kind of changing. So it's like, I don't know. It's weird not owning stuff anymore, I guess.
Yeah,
totally. I think like, you know, this whole, the MySpace player kind of stuff was like kind of the beginning of a lot of what we see now with like Spotify and whatnot. And, you know, I think it's easy to get salty about everything, but I just try to like, I don't know, kind of just see how it's still basically the same. Like you make music on your computer and you can distribute it. And how easy is that? You know,
easier than ever, right? Yeah.
It
makes it way more accessible for sure. Yeah.
Totally. And then like me and my buddy were always bickering about like, not bickering, but we're talking about like, you know, the other day, shout out Stephen Young. We were talking about this Relapse compilation record, and like every song on it is like classic. Yeah. You know, just there's like old Nile on it. There's old Origin on it. There's probably old Dying Fetus on it, like all on the same CD from the same era. Mm-hmm. So it's like, we're talking about like, yeah, you had to actually be like kind of good to like get your music heard at the time, you know, like you had to get signed and you got to go in the studio and get distributed. And so now you have like this kind of this oversaturation thing, but it's like, it's nothing to get mad about. Like just get good, you know?
Yeah. I mean, 100%.
Like if you're good and you're flowing, like if you're, and there's, and I've been on both sides of this where like you're good and you're flowing, or maybe you're not even good, but you're just flowing and you're just current, and people can kind of like feel that authenticity and they feel the flow and like they vibe, almost they almost get into that more than they do whatever you're doing. And then in hindsight, it kind of shows to be significant. But then I've also been like where I haven't been on my flow, and you're like kind of in this weird thing where you got too many projects, or like you're reworking stuff too much or whatnot. And then you feel it too. So it's, I think if you're just like kind of on your game and you're like, you can quickly like receive an idea, execute the idea, and then release the idea. And when I say release, I mean both distribute, but also like release it from your side.
Just stop
where
thinking
it's like,
about it kind of thing. Like it's out of my control at this point, like on to the next thing.
Yeah. And when you're on that cycle and you just kind of nail in the repetition of it, I think if you can stay consistent with that, it's just like, it's always kind of just a matter of time before you're engaging with people who should be receiving it. You know what I mean? So it's like you can still do all that today. So I don't see any reason to get salty. Just get good.
Especially now, you look at fucking even Spotify will suggest you music. Like it's gonna automatically look at what you listen to and suggest you the right things for you with like custom playlists. YouTube does the exact same thing based on what you're watching and stuff like that. Like technically speaking, if something's out there for someone, like it's easier than ever to find the right person with your music, and you're not even doing anything about it, right? Like all you got to do is kind of put it out.
Yeah. And I can see how you work on something for a long time and then you release it and no one listens to it, and that could be frustrating. But it's like, again, if you're just like very like no idea or moment stays the same, it's always changing. So the kind of the better you can get your process down to where you can quickly get something done and then release it and you're in that cycle, I think other ideas will come to you in terms of like how to further connect what you're doing with the right people. In my experience, it's just like it's always kind of worked out that way. I believe if someone else was kind of more in tune with that, they would find their community, so to say,
Yeah, I think it's a matter of balance as well. Like, because some people, if you put too much pressure on yourself and you're expecting too much, for sure, the result won't be as good as if you just feel it and you do it because you like for the right reason. Don't want to say that's not a good reason, but if you're band together and you're like, this song has to do good, like it's probably going to be just, you're going to overthink, you're going to be stressed. It won't be the same vibe. People in a weird way can feel that. They can feel if you're desperate, it's over, man. It won't work. Like you just need to do what you love. You have a feeling, and I think Cam really your explanation was perfect because you have this idea, and you kind of have, once it's done, you have to let go a little bit because it's very tempting, and I do that all the time. Like I'm like, oh, I'm gonna revisit this part, and the more you overthink and you redo everything, you're kind of ruining the initial energy and what you had. And it just becomes this, not generic, but in my case, it's at the end, it sounds more like anything else. And it doesn't sound anymore like the crazy idea I had at first. So
the feeling you had.
Yes. And it's important to keep that. And as an artist, it's also extremely difficult to let that go because you want to do the best thing ever. But there's nothing, you're never going to feel like that's the most perfect. Okay, I'm never going to top that. Like in anything artistic. I was a barber for 7 years, and every time you think you're going to do the perfect haircut, it never happens. Like it can be really good. There's always a little thing. Like, maybe it's because I was terrible. Who knows? There's a reason why I'm not a barber anymore, I guess. But it's no, but like you need to let go a bit because sometimes if I take a look at most of the deathcore songs I really love, like I don't know if you remember bands like We Are the End, all that stuff, like smaller underground stuff. I liked them because some parts were not perfect and it was insane, it was weird, and they tried things, and that it gave it personality. But I feel like a lot of bands are saying like, this is my best album because everything is super fluid. Yes, that's great. But sometimes you lose a little bit of your personality, a little bit of your touch that people were connecting with. At least that's how I see it. So
totally. I mean, it's true with like in metal specifically. I'm sure other genres have a lot of this. But like, go listen to like old Dying Fetus or something. It's so sick and it's so sloppy, and their new shit is so sick and so tight. But it's so everything's great. The whole era is great. The whole range of their music is great. And like, that's kind of how you got to look at things. It's like, you got to look at things in like a 5, 10, maybe 15, maybe 20, maybe more kind of scale. And
it's not binary. So
things evolve, and things progress. It's not like, you have your song, so you have your arrangement within the song, and then you have the record, and then you have that whole thing. But then it's like when you keep zooming out, you have like a dynamic of all your music over the course of time. And you kind of have to like sit with that a little bit and let that kind of paint, the picture. And if you fuck up your flow and start overthinking stuff, and you see it all the time with bands, or like their discography fragments, or they have like a big break, or they break up, and it's like, what the hell? It's like, wait, I don't know. It's kind of tough to keep that juggle going the whole time, you know, and to keep
more
it going.
People in the band too, I'm assuming, you know, that's kind of like other dynamics come into play as well.
The more I'm documenting also, and I look into stories and stuff, like just one member, no matter the position, the instrument, whatever, they lose 1% of the band, instantly the sound, everything, like there's something that's going to change, like with a new guitar player or whatever. So like the whole dynamic is like extremely important. It can be influenced by anything, basically. Just the way they were feeling can change everything. If they had a hard time with their label, whatever was going on in their life, you can, you know, it's weird because in music you can feel every single thing that people are going through. It's beautiful in a way, but know, I also respect a lot bands that, you know, they released a few albums, it wasn't, you know, what they wanted to do, but like they keep going, and they come back with something. Like I have a lot of respect for that, because you can tell they just keep going until they get back into that beautiful spot where they can be themselves. So
yeah, another thing I want to add too about like trying to make everything perfect and whatnot. This is a quote from Drew Folk, a producer. He's done a bunch of stuff. Like he's done like Amir Records and you know, more mainstream stuff, but a lot of like bigger rock and metalcore stuff. And he said, I just try to suck less on each record. And that's like the best rule of thumb ever.
The 1% every time, you know, it's just trying to upgrade a little bit. You don't got to shoot for the stars. You don't got to, those are like great goals, like big picture stuff, you know, to imagine yourself in a certain place or something like that. But
it works with everything, right?
Yeah, like, exactly. But I think where a lot of bands kind of get that lost is like, it's usually like, you know, a 3-year album cycle, right? It's always like, it's so long between starting to create a record and it actually coming out, and then you're doing the next. And so I feel like a lot of bands get kind of trapped in the like kind of do or die. Like it has to work now because they have a hard time seeing themselves in another 3 years, having to wait another 3 years for like the next thing to potentially hit. I think COVID like broke a lot of bands for exactly that reason, because people were like going with some sort of momentum or trying to get something set up, and then all of a sudden, they can't release it. Well, they couldn't release their album and they decided to wait, and just the wait itself killed the band. Like, you know, all these kind of dynamics that happen around just like having too much time between releases and stuff. That's what I've always found fascinating about your discography. I mean, dude, it's insane. Like I think Discovering has like, I keep saying Discovering. I'm a fucking retard. Disfiguring.
Discovering the goddess.
It doesn't mean the same thing.
It doesn't mean the same thing. Yeah,
I like it though. Discovering the goddess.
Maybe some sort of side project. Yeah.
It doesn't sound as heavy. It's just a little more... super
space version of the band, but but I mean, it's like what, like 13 albums, give or take. You know, sure, some of them you could say like EPs or whatever, but if you consider them all the same thing, like it's a very large amount of work. And when you look at the years and stuff, it's like it's almost once a year. A lot of them multiple a year. You know, there's some sort of a break in between there. But then you look at the Big Chocolate stuff. That's just been like nonstop, and there's like release after release after release after release. So I think you're kind of, you know, you're living by the words you're saying, right? Of just kind of like constantly putting stuff out and I'm assuming letting go as you're saying, you know, and just always moving on to the next thing. But
it's funny because I try to have that process really clean. Like all the stuff, like we'll look at like Circle of Nine, which is the first full length. It's like everything before that was kind of like a one and done type of track, and Circle of Nine was like no different. I think that whole record took me like maybe like 10 days, 2 weeks. And like
most of the records kind of came out that way, right?
Yeah, but it was great because like it's like at the time my mixing style was non-existent. It was just like everything was just like hard clipped. Every channel was clipped. And I just was going on what was coming out it is. And it was going off what's coming off the speakers, and I just like loved it. And then Sleeper was the same way. I don't remember how that session looked, but like I didn't really know what I was doing mix wise. It just was like doing things that sounded cool. I mean, I probably did some cool stuff in terms of like the production, but it wasn't like if I showed like some engineer dude, he'd probably be like, what the hell?
Point out a bunch of flaws. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I met a friend from EDM who was he was commenting on like some of my EDM stuff. And he was like, this track's really good, but it would be a lot better if it was mixed right. And I was like, what do you mean mixed right? Like, what do you mean by mixed down? And so he kind of like taught me.
It's a backhanded compliment.
Yeah. But he coached me. He mastered my stuff too. So I mixed Deprive and Black Earth Child, like kind of under his supervision, and he mastered it. Mm-hmm. And those ones came together real quick. I think I wrote Deprive instrumentally. I came back like 9 months later, did the final touches, did the vocals, immediately did Black Earth Child. And then after Black Earth Child, I was talking to my buddy
before
Stephanie
releasing the other
earlier.
One.
Yeah. Because I released them both at the same time, and one was like a secret. So I was kind of like this weird shad of secrecy, and that was like kind of when I think Disfiguring kind of had like a bigger kind of pop. Yeah. And
I remember everyone talking about it when it like shadow dropped at the same time. I still remember seeing it being like, wait, there's a second one? What the fuck?
Yeah, and they were really two different albums. It wasn't like I wrote too many songs and split it. They really had two different tones and a whole different vibe. But after that, I was going through some like personal stuff because I was getting a little older. I think at the time I was 23 when I did those. And when I was like 24, 25, that's when like your natural youthful growth hormone kind of runs out and you can't live off of like, ice cream and coffee anymore.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. So, I kind of had to like, I don't know how to get into all that shit, but I wrote a record in 2015 that's actually released last year called Carnival. But I didn't have like the juice to finish it, like that sweep. So I just put it to the side.
Just never revisited it.
Yeah. And then this is kind of like the beginning of like and then I did Caterpillar, which was cool because it was very flowy. The mix, I think, took a little too long. And I don't think I nailed kind of what I was really going for with like the aesthetic of that record. But it's funny because like I think a lot of like the Disfiguring fan base loves to like shun that record and hate on it. But I've made like so many random new fans from that record that like that's like their favorite record. And you never know. So and then after that,
the first album you did with Garrett?
No, this is the one afterwards.
Oh, okay.
Which I did Blood Animal, and I was finishing Caterpillar. I started Blood Animal with Garrett, and then at the end of it is when I started Soothe, and Soothe was like felt good. Soothe was the first one that was like a
a real shift and
just crushed it. Like the whole thing was very fluid, the whole process. And then I did Soothe 2 immediately afterwards, but I didn't release that until a couple months ago. And then I kind of took a break and I just wrote like a lot of like pop music, like not just like generic pop, but like kind of getting more into like a pop structuring mindset and just wrote hella music. Like I think one summer I wrote like maybe 200 songs, just like all genres. Okay. And then I was like, I'm going to write a Disfiguring album like this. And that's when I wrote The Brutal Machine. And then I moved back from Texas.
Which is like by far the wackiest of the bunch, if you want to say, like the more experimental of the bunch, if you will,
Yeah. So
Carnival is pretty spacey as well, but Brutal Machine is definitely like way out there compared to the regular stuff, right?
Yeah, and I love it. Like I love that. I think that my issue with The Brutal Machine was I made it in Austin on a PC with certain plugins. Then when I moved, I'm kind of a minimalist. And when I moved back to Nevada, I sold like pretty much everything I owned except for my guitars and my microphones. But like my computers, all my equipment, my synthesizers, whatever.
Why sell those off though? Like considering you probably knew you were going to need them again, right? Or you were thinking of upgrading or is like changing anyways? Or
I thought if I needed it again, I would buy it again. And that was kind of like my mindset. Like anything I need again, I'll just buy again.
Yeah.
And I honestly haven't needed anything. The only synth I want back isn't compatible with my Macintosh, which drives me nuts. So it's like even right there, it's like oh well,
The one thing you want to buy, you can't.
Yeah, seriously. So then I got this dope MacBook, and that's when I like ported over the sessions from the Brutal Machine, and I actually mixed that record using my 14-inch MacBook speakers.
Okay.
And these headphones. I had no monitors. These are like $100 Sennheisers, you know. But I just was like, I just was doing it how I felt. I got it mastered by someone, so I was trying to like kind of leap with that. And then afterwards is when I got. You guys familiar with Barefoot speakers?
No,
I don't think
they're so sick.
Yeah,
I've always wanted a pair, and I went and bought a pair.
Studio speakers, or
what's the name?
Okay,
barefoot monitors or barefoot sound or whatever. But I got a pair of those, and like those have been kind of game changing for real. That's like why
you have like the recent video on your channel doing the remixing of Blood Animal. Those are the speakers in there, right?
Yeah, they have an iconic look.
Yeah.
So
the kind of sub on the sides kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, honestly.
They're so sick. So I started writing it's funny because I wrote a bunch of music after the Brutal Machine that was even more spacey and more experimental, but I thought the Brutal Machine was going to flop. I thought like no one was going to get it. And I thought it was because probably the concept and songwriting was good, but I was worried that the production wasn't going to like translate what I was doing. But then it was good enough to where people like were like, hell yeah, this is cool. So immediately that gave me like the green flag, and I wrote this album that's probably never going to see the light of day called Infinity. It's 17 songs, and it's crazy, but it's a lot of work, and I think I've already outgrown it. Probably from kind of what we're talking about by just like
you just got to put it out. Like you just set it.
I think if I would have put it out 6 months ago, it would have been fine. But at like this day and age, it's like I got other shit I need to work on. That's like more important and better, and probably more. We'll do it better. You've
already moved on, I guess.
Exactly. And I did that record.
Fans hate hearing those kind of stories.
Yeah, I mean, I've. It's not that I just like closed books on it. I've opened it up somewhat recently and tried to like think about not reworking, but re-recording maybe, and stripping all the mix down. I'm just like, my God, you're just wasting time. Like you could be working on something relevant, and you know, maybe I'll share the hard for me to listen to demos right now. Like they sound good. They're just like, I wouldn't want to release it. I want to work it, and every time I open it up, I'm like, this is too much work to waste energy on, even though it's dope. Like there's a couple people I'm really close with that I've shared it with, and they love it, but like, I don't know. We'll see. So I'm getting somewhere. I'm not just like going through the whole catalog. I'm trying to, this relates to this whole thing we're talking about.
Process and all this stuff.
Yeah. So I kind of took what I was in Infinity. Each song is its own little project file. It's not all in one project file where like the whole mix affects everything. So each time I wrote a song, I was doing this like kind of EDM mindset where you kind of mix it as you go, which I don't do anymore. And I was like, this sounds great. Let me apply this to Suit 2, which was just sitting on my computer. And Suit 2 was super fucking loud, and I mixed it down the Barefoots. I mean, I didn't really change much. I think I spent like maybe a day just making it louder, and put it out. And that's when I had the idea to remaster Blood Animal. But when I opened up Blood Animal, I applied the channel strips to it.
You had a bunch of shit like missing and shit, right?
Shit missing, and just like everything was so sloppy. Like the way I played guitar on it was so sloppy. I was like, this sounds awful. So I pretty much had to like go back and redo the whole thing. And then I was like, okay, well, now you're done and you can get better at mixing on your next record. And I was like, no, this is your project. Like learn, like refine your mixing right now. So I signed up for Nail the Mix and like watched a few videos. And, like, it's funny because like the shit I was watching, they were like doing the same thing I was doing. They're just like these super subtle tweaks that when I made them, I was like, oh yeah, that's like my philosophy was correct, but maybe like there's something really small that was a little off. And so that helped me there. And then after that, I was basically like, I'm not mixing anything until everything is recorded correctly and written correctly immediately. And the Gorehammer record I sent you the other day is like the first record I've done with like this philosophy where I'm just focused on, I call it remember we used to call it pre-production? I think bands still do that when they're working with an engineer, but I used to call like everything for Disfiguring pre-production.
Right.
As
Until it's got
same.
the final mix and master.
Yeah, which is like almost the same back in the day. But like when Colton and I did that, for those of you who don't know, Colton Bennett is the main songwriter of like the Angel Maker discography.
Yeah.
So he's like a riff lord for real. And so when we did that, he wrote 7 songs. He sent me over like really basic programmed drums, programmed bass, and just like sick riffs, just recorded hella clean. And so like I loaded those up. I redid all the drums. I did all the production. And then after that, I was like, I kind of got in the vibe of it. And then I picked up the guitar and wrote a few extra songs at the end. And I worked on that thing for about 30 days. Not straight, but like recording all the vocals, making sure all the drums were tight, 0 mix on it. Like maybe a plug-in on the vocals for compression and like a bass amp.
How a real pre-production sounds like.
Yeah. And guess how long the mix down took me?
I don't know.
I'm assuming
one day.
Yeah, because based on the stories you were putting out this week, it seemed like, I'm going to start doing this thing. And then, album done.
Yeah, I literally had a session in the morning when I woke up.
Yeah.
And then granted, a lot of it was from the Blood era production phase. So a lot of the channel strips that I was using on that, I put over, kind of edited some things.
But that's a part of the process too, right? Like as time goes on, you refine your shit, you can reuse some things and you're going for a similar vibe or whatever. You can at least base yourself off certain things, right? It becomes like a template or like some baseline thing.
And I've always done that. Like everything I've ever written was always an evolution of my template or presets, and you modify them and save them, and then you keep using. And when I watched Nail the Mix, like that's all they were doing. So it was very validating of like a lot of my original philosophies and processes. And that was kind of like the biggest thing I've gotten out of Nail the Mix is just like validation on like how close I was to like really being on it. And then, once you're there, once you have that confidence, with some referencing,
that was all right. Yeah.
Then you're like, okay.
It must be awesome for you though to be able to like revisit all of that because it's different timelines in your life, right? Like you've done so much music that I'm guessing that if you go back to something, you can kind of relive how you were feeling back in the days or what was your process back then. So it's pretty cool that it's all kind of documented for you since you did a lot of music. I'm guessing it must be wild sometimes to hear those older material where you were still, learning on certain things. And I'm guessing vocally, in your vocals, I'm guessing you improved and you figured out new things.
Yeah, the vocals are funny too. And that's like a whole nother like.
Yeah, I'm very curious about that part, if I'm honest.
But I'll get to like, I'm almost caught up with this random discography rant. Which is nice because like now this will be like, this is just kind of what you're bringing up with the discography and like the process and kind of reflects on the creativity and the ruts and the flow we were talking about earlier. So when I brought over the project files from Blood Animal, I found a bunch of old songs I wrote in like 2010, 2011 that were kind of like around Circle of Nine Sleeper era. And one of them had a render on it. And I was like, oh, I should put this on Infinity. It's already 17 songs. I'd just make it 18 and include this like bonus track. But when I started like digging through the sessions, I found like 8 songs that were never released. Or maybe there was like a version of it released or something. But I was like, damn, this record is like awesome and like fully written already. So I was like, now I got Infinity. I got this like old throwback Disfiguring record that I was calling Arena. Probably, I still call it that. If I ever do anything with it, that'll be probably what it's called. But when I initially started writing for Gorehammer, this record, because this is like the first record I'm like actually a part of. I just did vocals on the first one. This record is like kind of the process to me and Colton. Like it's really about us like kind of coming together and like really blending our minds. Yeah, exactly. So I was like, kind of coming from like this unfinished Infinity, unfinished Arena on my mind. Colton started writing and kind of what we're talking about earlier. Like if he was writing, I wanted to write the same moment he was. to kind of be in the same era. So I started writing, and like they were great songs, but like they just weren't fitting like what he was writing. And I was like, this just sounds like Disfiguring the Goddess. This is not Gorehammer. This isn't fit. I was like, why don't we take a step back and like, why don't we just work on these 7 songs? And once I got into like working on the project, that's when I had like I picked up the guitar and wrote a few songs on for the record that I think really complement the record really well. But
it meshes, everything meshes super well together. Like there are like certain riffs that I was hearing that I was like, oh, that's like 100% a Colton riff. Like there's some very kind of Angel Maker-y type, types like riffs and stuff on there. Like they're for sure he's the one who wrote those. But I think and I was telling you a bit before, like I think a lot of the songs have different vibes to them, and it's pretty eclectic, but it's very well rounded. Like it all fits together, kind of to add to what you're saying right now. I think it works well as a body of work, and it doesn't feel like, oh, this is your song, this is Colton's song. This is, it's very
it's funny because on the first one, which is Johnny and Colton. Johnny, I mean, the last Angel Maker record, I think it's called Covenant. That was the first record where it was Colton was, I think, writing half and Johnny was writing half.
Sure, okay.
And I can't tell the difference between their styles. For the longest time, I couldn't tell who the hell wrote what on Vapor Void. Now I can tell because I know a lot more about Colton's style, and I also know like what tuning he's playing in. And Johnny was playing more detuned on Vapor Void. So now I know who wrote what. And I actually, like this morning, I was like sent Colton a list. I was like, you wrote this and Johnny wrote this. Like, am I right? And he was like, you're one off. Like, but you nailed it.
That's funny.
The song, like the track listing might change, but when you reference that final mix link I sent you, I got to get to you too. But the last 3 tracks I wrote, the first 7 tracks Colton wrote.
Okay.
And I think it was really good for Colton to write that because he just had a ton of fun, no pressure. Like he just was like in the flow. He was like just doing kind of whatever he wanted. And then I kind of grabbed that and really kind of like, painted with what he was working with on the songs he wrote. And I think kind of it's funny because the songs that Colton played guitar on, now that they're done, they really, really, really feel like a melding of our minds, because like I kind of felt like
there's something to base yourself off of now, right? Like now that there's already been a record, now that you guys are more like doing a more collaboration on this one, you guys are probably both kind of feeding off of each other's styles and what became, both of them melding together, like you're saying, right?
Oh yeah. Like the way he programmed drums were like, everything he sent me was like a total layup for me to slam dunk. Like the drums were so super simple, like nothing in terms of like everything was the same velocity. Like it was just like, this is the beat that goes with this riff. Yeah. And I just was like, acted like the drummer, and it just was like, okay, this is it. I just kind of like, I didn't think I was going to do that. But when I started working on it, I literally like reprogrammed all the drums. We kept the same thing, and there was only a couple parts where it was like maybe I was going too wacky, and we're like, let's dial it back to like, what the kind of the bones were. But at the end, and especially with all like the kind of the ambience and Foley and synths I kind of put on it, I really felt like Colton and I were like, like on all. Yeah, Colton songs are my favorite for sure on there. I like the ones I did, but they're all just kind of like to fill out the record a bit, I think, from what, I think if you listen to the first 7 tracks,
to look at it from a non-biased perspective, looking at your own work also, right? And like comparing it to something else, like.
Yeah. I mean, I think mine are different, but I think in terms of what Gorehammer is turning out to be, I think it really kind of like puts the kind of the bookends on the record.
Sure.
And I'm eager to see what the final track listing turns out to be, and I'm eager to get it out. Like it sucks. Like to me, it sucks because like if people are familiar with Gorehammer, they're probably only familiar with obviously Vapor Void, and I think the next one is really going to be like kind of what Gorehammer is like. All right, this is really like the kind of the very footprints of like what this thing is going to be kind of really about. And, you know,
I mean, it's the second album, right? Like that the first one was, most bands' first albums are trying to figure out what the fuck you're even doing, right? And trying to find what you like. And I think, I mean, we see this throughout your entire Disfiguring discography. Like it's that 1%, and it's to take what was already made and trying to improve upon it, or take what you enjoyed about it and improve upon that. Take out the things you liked less. It's always like kind of a learning lesson, I guess. So I can see that, like, obviously, like the second one being like it's an elevated version of the first album, right? In so many respects, I find.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's very, I mean, I think Johnny and Colton being very, I don't want to say similar in songwriting, but they play in the same band. They were like, I don't know if they were together when they wrote it, but they're like, they're gelled as bros, right? Yeah. And songwriters and, partners in Angel Maker, especially in terms of like regards to songwriting. So I think that was something, and I came in and just did vocals. I think I put a couple samples on it that were kind of funny, but like my involvement was very minimal. And then over the course of the year, like Colton and I's friendship has really grown a lot. And we were kind of like very eager to like see what Colton and I doing a record together would be like. And he was great. I mean, he's the man. Like he crushed it on writing the songs, of course, but like,
he's the sweetest dude.
Yeah, he really is.
to start with, so.
Yeah, he really believed in like what I was going to be doing with the record. And, I was coming off of the Blood. I'm the Blood Animal remaster. I'm calling Blood Era because it's so different. I just had to call it something different. And
you didn't want to at first, right?
Yeah. I mean, I was like, I honestly, at first I wanted to like sound replace Blood Animal, but after Blood Era is finished, I almost think Blood Animal sounds cooler now. Not the name, but like the record is I like it. The record now more.
I love how you changed the order of the track listing to kind of just reflect the order the songs were made in. Like it really, I don't know. It's like an extra thing more than just like, oh, okay, here's a remaster or whatever, I thought that was a cool touch.
Totally. It's a lot more repurposed than just like a remaster. But he was like, we were I was sending him clips of that the whole time. And, when I was working on Gorehammer, he was so supportive and so like encouraging the whole time. And honestly, like we've been kind of celebrating because I sent the record into mastering last night. So it's like totally out of our hands now. We're both like, fuck yeah. But like reflecting on it, like, there wasn't really any point of contention. There was like, in terms of like any decision-making backtracking, there was a song that I wrote for Disfiguring that was on Infinity that I was going to put on this record. And like, once I stripped it down to have the same production, I just was like, this is going to take too much. Yeah. I was like, this is going to take too much work. Like, it just doesn't feel like the same elevation of the other songs. And, so that was like maybe a day or two's of like, and then I removed it and we're like, okay, it's back there. But everything just felt awesome. Like it really felt like a return to form in terms of like my flow and my process on it. And, that's kind of the process I'm going to apply to the next Disfiguring record, which is kind of like remnants of like what I was originally writing for Gorehammer, but it was just not Gorehammer at all. I kind of struggled with that a little bit. Not writing the songs, but just like, I was like, dude, a separate
identity, like a separate thing, not just another Disfiguring album. Like
exactly. And that's what makes me like the songs I wrote for Gorehammer even more. I'm like, hell yeah, I wrote something a little different. they are, but going back and like now starting to work on this Disfiguring record, I'm like, okay, like this process is dialed in. Like it's go time. So I think the year, like it won't.
So what? Another 2 weeks and we get a new Disfiguring album?
Yeah, I mean, I wish. I don't know how long. I don't know how long it'll take. Probably not that long, but who knows in terms of like the process. And I want to follow it up pretty much immediately as well. So I think like if we talk this time next year, it'll like a lot of the things I'm kind of like seem a little maybe esoteric about in terms of how I'm talking about things or projects that like aren't known publicly yet.
Yeah.
Like I think it'll be a lot more fleshed out, and that's a beaming note of confidence, but it's almost like you know when you say something, it's like, well, you better do it now. It's not even like I'm like, oh shit, I just said something that I have to go do now. It's like, nah, I know it. Like it's rock and roll time.
Look, you've done it enough, right? Like it'd be different also if this was your second record, but like we're looking at like collectively almost fucking 40 records between, you know, all your different projects and stuff. This ain't,
you know what you're doing. You know you can do it also. But I do understand that. Like once it's said, it's like you owe it to yourself, and like it makes it even more official in a way. And it's like, okay, now I'm doing it. Like I just said I'm doing it. So it's kind of it's I wouldn't say it's a pressure. It's more of an official step, like to make it concrete, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I would feel the pressure if I was just bullshitting, but I'm like, no, I know it. Like every day I wake up and like you know, you're saying like, oh, you seem like a busy guy. It's like I just feel like I'm like I have all my focuses like in priority right now, and I've had them in priority for a significant amount of time right now, where I'm so used to like the delayed gratification process, where like the day in day out process is now like, you know, the glory of like the work is the gift kind of like, you know, kind of tagline. And I'm just like, okay, like I don't need time. I need just consistency and to be refreshed by sleeping well and then hitting it how I need to hit it for however. And the other thing too is I don't like overworking anything. I've done this so many times where I know like when my magic starts to dwindle. Yeah. And that's when I stop. You know, so I only work on music now for maybe probably about 2 hours max any given day. Yeah, it's just like that feels like the sweet spot to me. I mean, when you're starting out, it's like you have to like, I don't know, punish your.
There is something to be said about getting into that sweet spot, though, but to get into it, right? To get into a groove, 2 hours is pretty short, actually, if you think about it. Like to actually get in the zone and get work done.
If he's like me, what happens to me? When the 2 hours starts is when you get that motivation that you're okay. Like it's kind of, for me, what happens, like I'm working on a song right now and it's like, if I don't feel it, I don't work on it. It has to be like, okay, I'm doing it, but I'm exactly like you. After a while, after maybe 2-3 hours, when I'm starting to feel that it's fading away, I stop like instantly. I just stop because I don't want to, you know, I don't know how to explain it. It's like you go in autopilot mode, and it's just, you're doing it to do it, and you become at least for me, I'm not patient anymore. I'm just like I'm trying to go fast. I'm like, okay, forget it. I'm stopping for today. That's so I only work on it when I'm passionate and I'm like, okay, let's do it. And I'm like this kid once again, if that makes sense. So I don't know if it's what you mean, but
yeah, I think another important thing to note too is like me separating out these stages of the process, where like there's a songwriting process and there's a recording process. Sometimes they're the same. Like sometimes you're recording guitar at the same time you're writing it, and sometimes you're not recording guitar when you're writing it. And you know, but the pre-production stage with the no mixing, I think, is really important, because prior I would write something, and then when my like energy to write and to create the arrangement or the song, I would shift into like a mixing mode when I was exhausted of that. And like you're just burning the oil at that point. Yeah. And it's like, I don't know. I just don't think it's efficient. I think this most recent Gorehammer is like, I mean, I already know it's proof just because of the way it felt executing on it and the way like how the mix. I mean, I had a morning mix. I reamped the guitars in the afternoon, and I kind of nailed it. And then before I rendered up the pre-masters, I kind of just like adjusted one thing, and it was like crushed it. Like it just felt really like, I don't know, like it feels like you made contact with the ball. You know, it's clean. Yeah. It's like, all right, there it was.
And it's the weirdest thing. Like sometimes you work, at least for me, maybe it's because, you know, I don't have as much experience, of course, as you have, but like for me, I've experienced working for months on a song, and I listen to it now and I'm like, that's terrible. And now I've been working for only 2 weeks on something, but it just went well. Everything flows. It goes super well. It's 1,000 times better. Not even close to have put as much time as the other one I'm throwing away, literally. So it's there's something to be said about If it's too difficult and like you're picking on everything, if it's not flowing, I'm not sure that you're in the, at least for me, it means I don't have what I need to have to make it great.
Totally. So. And I think like, you know, the whole, like when you kind of like set that up, we're like, oh, you've done more than me, but this is my experience. I kind of don't. I think sometimes you can listen to someone who has more experience and talk about these things I'm talking about. But in terms of like the differences between people, and and I think probably everyone who's into this type of music and everyone who's probably at least watching this, and certainly all of us at this round table, it's like we're literally all the same. Like we literally all have the same feeling about it. We all have the same kind of sensitivity to this stuff, and that's like we all bond around this sensitivity towards being into this and having like kind of some type of thing about it. So I like, even if you just like listen to this kind of music and you feel like you have like a kind of you've developed like an eclectic taste in metal, like over the course of your life or whatever, it's like you're literally like probably so similar to the people who are like making the music you listen to. There's really not that much difference between like our sensitivities to this stuff. So I think, I mean, I don't know. I'm just kind of paying my respects to you guys and anyone watching that I really feel like we're all kind of have this knack for this music, and whether you're making it or how long you've been making it, or if you just listen to it or whatever it is, it's like we're all kind of in the same pocket. And that's just how it is. And I think that's why we all kind of vibe off of this like creativity talk. You know what I mean?
Thanks, man. Yeah. And there's something really beautiful happening, and I'm going to speak for both of us, Dom, so correct me if I'm wrong, but because that does happen a lot. But but for me, the way I see it is that it's been a wild realization for me to realize like it's not. I was closer to all these people than I thought I was. Like you feel like you're in your corner or you're weird, whatever. And then you meet all these amazing people in different bands or in the community. And you just realize we share, as you said, we share the same thing, the same love and passion. We probably went through the same, almost the same phases to get there, right? Like the same first bands, and like at some point people were listening to like As I Lay Dying and that stuff, and then you listen to another thing, oh my god, what's that? Oh, Underoath. And like the more I talk with people, it's like, oh my god, all those times I was maybe feeling alone in those steps, I was never. Like we were all going through that, and it's like I think there's like
at some point, we all think we're so fucking weird, but yeah, we're not really.
Or we're all weird. It could be that as well. But like it's always been welcoming, and there's a beauty in that. And every time I try doing other music, I did other music, but I always come back to my first love, which is this. When I sit down and I really want to, like, I did acoustic music for a while, other thing, piano, even like other, and it's fun. But never close to when I do my freaking MySpace deathcore kind of thing. It's like I'm going back to that mind. It's like I travel back in time and I feel exactly the same way. It's a beautiful thing. And I'm sure even people who don't do music, but just, always been listening to that, I'm sure they get the same, the same kind of feeling. So it's great.
Totally. I think like this happens with, humans in general, no matter where you go. And I think especially, humans are creative, and everything humans do, I think, is kind of creative, whether you're talking or writing or just solving any kind of problem, really. But there's something unique about music, and I think it has to do with that. It's like some kind of, it has like you're listening to it, but there's also like a feeling to it. I think that, the sound waves that you're hearing are like a
visceral,
wave.
Like it's primal,
Yeah. So I think music has this weird thing where like, if music is the thing that's drawing you, I think it has like it's a unique way. It brings people together uniquely versus like if you're really into film and watching films and stuff. Like I think the way people who are like film is your thing, I think the way you connect and find your community or whatever there is like a little different. I just would have to imagine like something about music is just so unique to me,
Yeah, I said this example a few times. I know it's not in metal, by the way, so it's a little bit different because I do think that metal is also different. There's something to be said, like when you go to a hardcore show or whatever, just the way it's kind of a look of like we're the same. It's cool, you know. But I went and see this like because I'm a big fan of Blink. In case it doesn't really, I don't show it, but like I'm a big fan of Blink-182, and I went to see a concert, and it just occurred to me in the middle of the show when I just looked around, and I've been listening to that since I'm like 9 years old, and just to realize that there's like thousands of people who were probably in their room exactly like I was, you know, listening to that. Like there's music is so close to us emotionally. It's such like a personal, deep thing that when you realize there's so many people feeling the same way, you instantly feel connected. And I think music, as you said, has this special thing that I believe is not present in other kind of things.
You don't get that in the movie theater.
Well, I don't think. Well, maybe for some people, but never really happened to me on that level. But it's beautiful. It's certainly special, and metal also has something special. I went to see other shows, and like the way people are just like nice with each other, at least in my experience, like someone, you know, fall down in the pit, people come and help, and someone loses, you know, his hat or whatever, people are picking you up. Hey man, everybody's just cool. Like it's always been the best for me. Like
there's like a sort of brotherhood thing, you know, like
community kind of thing. And if it's okay with you, Cam, like I'm so curious about your, you know, and I know it's going to be a big topic, but like I would like to talk about vocals if you're okay with like.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I'm so curious because like, and I'm sure for Dom too, but like as someone who does vocal, you've been extremely influential. So like, and I'm sure a lot of people in the chat right now, it's the same thing. You personally inspired me. I was confused. I was like, is he doing inhales or exhales? I was like, how the hell does he manage to sound like not human, basically like a beast? And I was trying to do these songs, these sounds, and I couldn't, like practicing. And my first question, I guess, would be like to know, like I'm just curious to know where your influences were, like as maybe if you heard like a certain vocalist, bands, or if it's just you trying out sounds. I'm very curious.
I think there's probably two major points to that. The first one being just the idea of it, and the second one being like actually kind of figuring out your own voice. When I think like a lot of people, I mean, probably not anymore, but back in the day, everyone's first DAW was Guitar Tab Pro, because you could program drums and program guitar. And I remember like as soon as I started playing guitar, I think I learned the structuring of what a power chord is, and like learned like a Green Day song or something. And then as soon as I like understood that that's like what a song was, I was like, I really didn't have that much care to learn songs, as I was immediately kind of like writing songs. So I've always written music. Like when I pick up guitar, it's just kind of what I like doing and whatnot. And when Guitar Tab Pro came out, you're able to kind of like put your whatever your moment or feeling you're in, but it's like, you know, like journaling or something. It's like you have all these thoughts,
immortalize it and listen back to it.
Yeah. So I was kind of doing that, and I was like, the other thing I want to bring up at the same time is like, do you guys know the band Old Man's Child?
I don't think I do.
So Old Man's Child is a Norwegian black metal band, and their singer and guitar player joined Dimmu Borgir, I think, for the Puritanical record. And he's been with them ever since. He's a great guitar player, and he's a sick vocalist, and he's a great songwriter. So he joined Dimmu Borgir for Puritanical. And I think between Puritanical and The Great Apocalypse, he wrote a record. I can't believe I can't remember what it's called right now. Like in Defiance of Existence. And it's him, the guitar player, the other guitar player, Old Man's Child, who's like the other OG dude in that group. And then the drummer of Dimmu Borgir, Nick Barker, who's like one of my favorite drummers of all time. And he played Cradle of Filth for a long time. My favorite work from him is definitely in Deep War Gear. And it's just like an awesome record. Like the whole thing is so sick. It's so well written. The drums are fantastic. It's coded. Like he does the whole thing where like he plays a keyboard all the way through. There's a lot of synthesizer and a lot of ambience. It's probably the most influential record on Disfiguring the Goddess by far, more than any other record out there. It's probably like this. If I had to pick one record that was like, this is the most inspirational record for me as Disfiguring, it's that record.
Cool.
And I remember being like, man, if I could just do the vocals, then I could do what this guy's doing, where he could like write songs and then also do the vocal part of it. And, that was, I didn't like try to learn vocals at that point, but I started playing in a lot of bands. I'm from a place called the Carson Valley in Nevada. It's like a few towns, and Carson City's close to it and whatnot. And in high school, I lived next to the high school. I was into recording music and producing music. And playing music. So I was in like multiple bands doing different instruments, different genres. Basically anyone who wanted to play music, I was like pretty much down to do something with it. If I wasn't in the project, I was like recording it or something. And
I mean, there was something going on around there, with like Misericordium and fucking I Built the Cross and stuff like that. Like that.
I Built the Cross is on the head. So Misericordium was down in Vegas, which is like it's like 9-hour drive. Very, very separated. There's no connection really from Vegas to northern Nevada. But I Built the Cross, like the two guys in that band, the guitar player and the vocalist, were the two guys in Disfiguring. It was me, a drummer, and then Garrett and Reed, the guitar player and vocalist, and I Built the Cross. And we were Disfiguring. And then they left Disfiguring to do I Built the Cross. And I recorded all the shit.
Yeah.
So I think they were like one of the few bands that kind of found like their own little groove going out like on the internet and whatnot that were kind of from that
remember
area.
Being mind blown by them. And that was just like, they had the foresight of having just like a really fucking cool, badass looking cover art. And like, it was like fucking blog spots and shit to download music, and like that cover, like, it would all be cover arts. And I checked that one out because it was like, wait, this looks insane. And then the songs were equally as crazy. So I was like, okay, I'm hooked. This is sick.
Yeah. And
I actually didn't realize
guitars.
You did the production until looking some stuff up for this.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's funny too. And that's like kind of goes to show, like I did the production literally the same way I did the Disfiguring stuff, but it sounds so different at the same time. I think it's just because of who's playing what and how it's being played and whatnot. But like Garrett was the original vocalist of Disfiguring. So like when I did Blood Animal, like I was in Nevada and Garrett was in Reno and he wasn't really doing music anymore. And we all grew up on the same MySpace deathcore shit. We had the same taste and a lot of that stuff. And we're both turning each other on to bands and whatnot. So I was like, dude, you should come down and we should make some music. And he would come down and he would sit there while I wrote the song and he'd write lyrics. And then I'd do all the vocals and place everything. And Garrett would come back on the mic and I'd record him over like, probably about half the song. And that was great. Like talking about like how a band member leaving or a new band member joining like affects the vibe. Like a lot of that whole record was just like vibing off of what Garrett thought was like sick when I was like playing something. I was like, all right, we're just going to do that.
Hold on to that, like kind of thing. Like,
yeah. And that's like kind of where like the soothe slambient thing came from too. Cause like at the end of Blood Animals, when Garrett and I were throwing like drum loops and big ambient pads on, I mean, I was doing that shit, 10 years ago with the ambience and the synths and stuff. But like Garrett and I were like basing the song around like a specific loop or something. And then I wrote the first 3 songs as Soothe before we finished Blood Animal. So it's like Garrett being like, yeah, that's cool. Like we're kind of, I was like, yeah, that is cool. Like
hyping you up kind of thing, parsing through what's good or not and like hyping each other up kind of thing.
Totally. So Garrett left. We had a couple other vocalists in the group in Disfiguring, and they were just like, local guys who were music oriented and whatnot. And it was like, hey, you should learn how to pig squeal or like inhale your vocal like this. And what sound comes out? It's like, okay, that sounds cool. Like, let's record music and do stuff. And when I was walking home from school one day, because I lived next to high school, I remember like it was funny because I was just talking with Cody Davidson from Sanguisugabog the other day about this, because he was kind of asking me some questions about vocals and stuff, because he's got like 1,000 projects and he's got some slam death metal shit he's doing where he wants to do vocals on it. So he's looking for like, you know, how to whatever. But so
this band is
like
awesome, by the way. This freaking band is awesome.
I Build a Cross.
But I mean, I Build a Cross, but also the name I can't pronounce that I'm never gonna try.
Sanguisugabog. Yes. Oh yeah,
dude,
so
like,
sick.
First time I heard that, because I'm more of a, you know, straight up whatever deathcore person, but I'm starting. I also love like Waking the Cadaver and bands like that. I love them. So like I'm getting into brutal death metal as well. And when I heard them, I was like, this is so freaking badass.
And that whole last record is just like everything about it's great. Production's insane. Great, vibes great. Yeah. The songwriting is awesome. Like it's so easy to listen to.
You can put it back to back easily. It's just everything is groovy and good. Like it's never boring. Like you're always at least like just a little bit like that. So I don't want to cut you off, but like it's a cool, super cool band.
Yeah, no, they're awesome. I'm a big fan. So like I was walking home from school and I don't think I was listening to music or anything. I think I was just walking home. And in my head, I was like, just sound like a monster. And I remember like all these like, you know, like monster voices like my dad would make or something, or like someone was like trying to imitate like a cartoon or something. And like something about like that mind frame, it immediately clicked in my head. I was like, I know how to do it now. And I didn't even try it. Like I didn't like attempt to produce any sounds or whatever. I went home, I loaded up like a Disfiguring the Goddess song. And at the time it was all live drums, and it was just like in my session. I think we we're probably waiting for like our vocalist to come down to track on it or something. And I just I just recorded my first ever vocals on it. Wow. And I was like, damn, it sounds awesome. It's on my YouTube. It's called the Disfiguring the Goddess DIY demo 2006 maybe. One of those songs. That's one of the ones
that's often like not listed in the
one of those songs. I think it's either, I don't know which one it is.
It says 2007, I think, for me. Could it be?
It's
maybe there's one before that.
Dates, there are dates that confirm the 3 years around that date from doing the research. It's all over the place.
So
no one knows.
There's that one, and then I think there's one. I'm not sure. Maybe it's one before it that has a different tone of drums. I'll have to like look for it, but it has 2 songs on it. One of them I can't pronounce the title, but my first vocals I ever did are on that record. Like I just hit record and like I didn't even try it. I don't remember. I just hit record and did the vocals.
I remember showing it to right now, and it's actually good. Like I love the vocal. Like the song list is like Ramirdus, Untitled, and Flower of Flesh.
Yeah, Ramadadurus or whatever. There's that recording. I think there's I'm not sure. I need to double check by looking at them, but I think we recorded that song before that. I'm not sure if I was on that version, but I think it's the demo version that you're looking at. I have my very first vocal on, because that song has me and the other vocalist, but we're kind of switching off the whole time. But he has like a really low,
you wanted to be nice solid, and not kick him out right away.
Well, we liked his vocals, so like we were like. I liked the because he did like a really low inhale. Like he sounded like Michael Majowski or whatever that guy's name is from Devourment. Absolute legend. But I always, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I always think of that Monsters Inc. character. But
I'm so glad that we're open about it now, because I don't know if you remember back then, but when you would say Inels, people would be like, oh no, Inels. But like I always liked it, and Waking the Cadaver Done is doing Inels, sounds super sick. A few death metal bands are doing it as well, and they sound freaking awesome. So like I never had any problem with it, but somehow every single time I was like, oh yeah, people would be like, oh no, dude.
Yeah, it's a cool tone. It's a cool tone. And that's kind of my thing. It's like, I don't care how someone did something. I mean, the process is always interesting, but I always, whatever.
If it sounds cool, it sounds cool,
man.
Sounds cool,
it sounds cool. Yeah. If it feels cool and it's like works, it's like, don't overthink however you did it. Like who cares?
Just, it works. It works.
If it's the move, yeah. Don't restrict the output by getting in your own head about if it's the right way or not, or if someone's not going to like the way you did it or whatever. It's like that's just going to hold back the progression of.
Someone's gonna not like it either way, you know. You're not gonna please everyone regardless. No. So
no. Like I think at the end of the day, it's like you feel it. Like for example, Dumb, you did it right. You went from NL to XL simply because it felt more right, and you preferred how it sounded. That's the only reason why you should change, a vocal style, is because you feel like moving another direction. But I don't think you should ever change it because people are saying like do your thing, man.
Like, there was such a stigma back then. It was such a thing. I'm sure Cab, you got those comments all the time. I'm sure everyone thought you were doing inhales. I'm sure you got that comment.
I put on my YouTube videos all exhale, just to like.
I love the fucking one of the first videos on your YouTube channel, that how to do DM vocals, and it's just you eating ice cream for a minute.
Yeah. That's actually how Cody like segued into like asking me about vocal advice. He was like, hey, you remember that video? And I was like, yeah, and we're like laughing about it, and then he was like, but seriously, like, how do you do it? But like. Yeah.
Sorry, can I ask, like, on the demo I just heard, like, one of you guys is doing a very creaky, like, another kind of sound, like who's doing the more? Do you remember who's? I don't know how to describe it, but
I probably had the more dynamic on it, and then his name was Nate, who's the other vocalist on. I think there's maybe one track with only me on it, and then the other two tracks have both of us on it. I feel like that's right, but I need to check. But Nate has like just the really low sound.
Okay, so it's
mine has the more dynamics in it. But like a lot of vocalists have done inhales very well. Like Annotation of an Autopsy started off with inhales, and then the second record was all exhaled, and both sound really good.
Both sounded awesome. Yeah.
Legendary band. While we're here, like Annotation. I remember first time I heard that, like. What was the name? Like, Welcome to Sludge Shitty. I was like, what's going on? Like, I think I fell in love with all that, pig squeal, freaking, back in the days we had like the Doom EP from Job. We had like these bands going for it. Like Waking the Cadaver is always a good example that I have also. But like, my mind was always like, why not? If you can sound like a freaking monster and it works. They were one of those bands that I think maybe didn't like it because their first record was like, classic MySpace deathcore with the pig squeals and stuff. And the follow-up record was just like a straight death metal record produced by Eric Rutan. And they're both sick records. So
it was sick as well. I personally preferred the death metal stuff after being a huge fucking fan of the original stuff. I gravitated towards a more death metal album afterwards, and I thought it just sounded badass as fuck. But I don't know.
It's funny because
more groovy, I think, too. Like more for sure. Like, it's almost two steps on some part.
Double bass all the way through, slow beats kind of thing. Like.
No, they nailed it. I was just missing a little bit the pigs because I love pig squeals and shit like this. I was just like, but it was, it was still good. So
I remember a lot of people were mad about the change. People were like, what the fuck? This isn't the same band anymore, But
I mean that Burning the Masses tour I did in Europe they were the co-headliners, and I became really good friends with them, and you could tell they were really trying to stick to the death metal shit, and a lot of the fans coming up to see them were like, play Sludge City, and like I think eventually they started playing it, but in the beginning they weren't playing it. In the beginning they weren't playing it. Oh no. But they eventually started playing it. But I mean, I did a song or a project. This is another reason I wish I had MySpace archives. I had a black metal project called Thanatos, which I think only had 2 songs. And all the vocals were inhaled because this was like before I could do the exhaled versions of I like my I can't do inhales at all anymore. It's really weird, but
I can't either, man. I did them for years, and I told everyone, hey, like I don't understand why you can't do them. This is the easiest thing ever for me, and now that I've switched, I can't do them anymore, and it's the exact same problem that everyone was having when they were coming to me. It's insane.
I'm curious about that because I did the same thing, right? I started inhales because obviously I said you were like in my mind. By the way, you were doing inhales. exhales. I had no problems with it, but I was like, there's no way this guy is doing exhales like the way you were sounding. So I started doing inhales and stuff. Then I switched to exhales because my friends was like, he was telling me it was healthier to do exhales for some reason. I was like, okay, I'm gonna start doing it.
The inhales didn't feel good doing them, and when you switch, if you switch, I feel like it really it just feels weird to go back. Like I'm not, and the only thing I really miss is I had a dope inhale high scream, which I can't use anymore.
Yeah, which that truly sound weird, like a monster, but a weird one, right? Like when you go in it, like it's very
special type.
And you had a lot of wind for it. You could really hold them out really long time.
For me, I just like recently understood how to do proper, because my exhales were always like dumb knows that like they were literally like death metal exhales for some reason. Like I was doing false chord, normal exhale. I couldn't do the monster exhale sound until 3 weeks ago, maybe, and now I can do it. But
congrats.
Thanks. It was about time. Like I'm doing vocals for years, and people were like, "They're cool, but it sounds more death metal." I was like, "Yeah," like I wanted the monster. So I went back. My friend told me, "Dude, you used to do sick inhales for some reason." Took me one day. And now I'm doing my inhales like better than before. Doesn't hurt at all. I have like this new technique. And to warm up, I don't know why, okay? But like to warm up, I do inhales and then I do my exhales. It's like my warm up thing. I do inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. And then I'm ready and I can mix both weirdly. But all my friends that were doing inhales, they can't do it anymore. They just can't.
I haven't thought about doing inhales in like a million years. I should try to practice it and see what happens. You know,
I'd have to really toy around with it. But for me, it's one of those weird things. Like most things screaming, it's kind of a feeling. It's like a muscle memory thing.
Yeah.
There's like, it's kind of like riding a bike, but when you can't do it anymore, I'm kind of like, well, where do I go from here? Like this is 100% how I like my body thinks this is how I should do it. I have no idea what to correct to try.
I'm sure you could though. I'm sure if you put time, for sure.
Maybe, but still, that like initial like trying and like failing miserably is like the weirdest thing ever. Because like in my mind, it's supposed to do the sound I think, but
I
just
think to be fair, I'm pretty sure it's a bit like if you put too much strength in inhales, you can hurt yourself for real. Because like I do understand why people are saying that, because there's a way of doing it. Like there's a lot of
that's just like any.
Oh, how the tables have turned! Oh, how the tables have turned! Look at us. We're all talking about how inhales are hard to do. We want to do them, and it's
2024, baby.
For me, by the way, it was a little bit humbling for me because I did a video called like exhales versus inhales just for fun, and literally everybody said, well, I prefer your inhales. So I was like, okay, I definitely suck at exhales. But then I focused a little more on it. But I remember in 2007, you would just tell someone that you do inhales and they would be like, don't do that, dude. Just learn how to do it properly. And it's funny because now I see people saying, oh, your inhales are sick. Dude. Like, it's not even, don't get me wrong. I think there's still people hating on it, but like there's a lot of people who are just cool with it now. So
like When's the Plague was a bigger band. I'm 99% sure that guy uses inhales. His whole the tonality of it sounds very inhale like.
It's windy a little bit, not to make a pun, but like
that's hilarious. I mean, I think the only really, and this is like what I was telling Cody, is like the only thing that, like when I do vocals, I can't see myself doing this with it. I mean, I should try later on, but like my whole neck, like if I flex it like this, kind of see, like I cannot do vocals without doing that. Like my whole neck has to like flex out. And that's the only part about doing them that like has any fatiguing element to it, is like the I guess the muscles in my neck. Yeah. They've been getting stronger though, because I've been doing a hell of a lot of vocals and I've been drinking tons of chocolate milk, which I think is making them grow twice as fast. So
that's the trick. Now we got it. Okay, so it was kind of true when you was eating ice cream. Now I understand. There's something with milk related to
yeah.
vocals.
Well, I think it has to do with the milk. I just think milk's good for. I mean, it just grows. It grows things. You know, it's like growth fuel. It's what it's for. You know,
I mean, like I haven't drank a glass of milk since I've probably like 13 or 14. I try to compensate with way too much cheese. That's my
same thing.
I mean, it's still the same kind of. Yeah. You have the funny thing is.
Yeah, like, but I can't inhale anymore. So I mean.
Okay, so try chocolate milk.
It's the milk.
Well, I don't think that it has the milk has anything to do with like, you know, like lubricating your vocal cords or relaxing anything in terms of that. I just think like, you know, if your neck's all sore, just like if any muscle is sore, it's like a glass of milk probably help you recover a little bit, you know, get all that whatever's in milk.
Yeah, but it's true that it's like I've been noticing I laughed it up too. I was recording the other day and it was starting to sound a little weird, and I noticed that it's because for an hour I wasn't drinking any water, nothing, and like there's definitely something to be said about like properly hydrating yourself, you know, putting a little cool, like I'm eating like it's stupid, but just tea with like freaking honey in it, like it can change a lot of things. So like it's so weird, but like it's, you know, when you do vocals, you are your own instrument. So of course, everything related to that, it's going to help for sure. So for me, it's not hard to believe. If you tell me that, you know, when you drink milk or you do, like, it sounds funny, but I'm not. I'm
gonna come up with the biggest like pre-vocal session routine for you that has nothing to do with facts and just make you kind of do laps around your house and get you to eat weird things. And sound like it's good for your vocals. Yeah. We could sell a course. We could do like a 10-step program or something to get your
10
vocals
jumping
better.
jacks.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. People do warm up their vocals for all kinds. I think singers are bigger into that. I think singers have a little more. I don't know. There's something. I think they're doing something a little bit more than. That's been always my big gripe. Is like, man, it's like, yeah, I'm a vocalist, but like, I'm not like out there like singing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like some like high end singer. It's like you got to. I don't know what that's like, but I feel like they're always warming up or something. You would think it would be less
intense or more, you know, that there would be some sort of difference. But I see a lot of people that are like vocalists that are super versatile, nail their shit, and then you come to find out, oh yeah, they're singers as well, right? Like that there's a correlation with like being able to control your voice, but I think a lot of it has to, like, there's some sort of warm up that goes with that as well, right?
For
like
sure.
Properly maintaining your health, but your vocal cords.
For sure. But like, you know what impressed me somehow is the singing, but like when you scream at the same time, kind of, I don't know how to explain it, like Beartooth, Tally Sykes, whatever, like when they sing, but like they kind of, you know, yell at this. So it's kind of a singing, but like with.
I think about that a lot. So that's kind of like like has like a tonal yell thing to it.
Yeah.
So this is, even though I'm doing like a brutal death metal style, I still feel like I sing in key of whatever I'm singing to. And I notice when I write songs in different keys, my vocal range is tied to that key.
Sure.
Not that I'm like, you know, testing my vocal, you know, my vocal, whatever.
No, but you're recording and you kind of match
the tonality. Yeah. And when I was, you know, everyone loves Meshuggah and doing Meshuggah research. And I was looking into like more so how they set up and how they tune, but also like what keys they're writing in and stuff. And their whole tuning in the songs they write and whatnot is set up because that's just where their vocalist sounds better. And I'm like, that's cool, because singers are the same way.
That's actually pretty fucking badass. Yeah,
you can have a singer that's really good, but only in like these few keys. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's just where they hang out. They only sing
usually
in these keys.
you would chalk it up to find a singer that can match the band's vibe, not the other way around, right?
Yeah. So they write specifically because that's where their singer totally fits,
dude. Honestly, Meshuggah, they're super sick.
They're the best. But I just think that's an underrated like concept in metal is like, I mean, I don't think a lot of people even pay attention to what key they're writing in most of the time. And it's like, I think if you're in a certain key, it's like, pay attention to what you like to sing to in certain keys. And, you know, I've been trying to kind of nail that down still. Like, and this is something I want to throw out, a little creative tidbit, like when we're talking about like writing a song quicker and getting in the zone quick. Like I have a buddy, shout out to Parker Winans, Scum Choir on Instagram. He's an artist and he's sick artist, does all kinds of stuff. His big medium is paint, you know, whether it's different types of paint, does, you know, watercolors, acrylics, all of them. And he does like charcoal drawings and stuff. And he does, he's a teacher too. He's teaching art as well. So he's like really in tune with like how to explain these processes and whatnot. And he had this one YouTube video that I watched, and he had a piece of paper and he started like just making a few random scuffs on it, like with the charcoal to sideways. And he's like, I always start out pick pieces, like just kind of making a few random marks. And he goes, it not only kind of gets the juices going, but it really helps ruin the blank canvas. And a blank canvas is perfect. So when you're looking at a blank, you're like, I don't want to ruin this perfect thing I'm looking at. So it kind of like immediately screws it up. So you're immediately like, okay, well, now what do I do? And you just kind of get it going. So when I sit down to like write a track, I usually don't really think that much. I start doing like literally anything, anything to get something on there, whether it's, you know, writing, you know, like a 8 bar loop or a 16 bar loop, or dragging a sample on right away helps me a lot. And I'm not married to any of it. Like I don't know the percentage, so I don't want to like throw some random number out, but I would say like a lot of times the first thing I start writing never makes the song. It's always just gets the juices going. And then I'm looking for that idea or concept or like thing,
some spark to go off of that you can like really hone in on.
Kind of thing. Exactly. So as soon as I can find that, that's when I like really get started. But like my very first thing I do is I just start like,
you got to be able to recognize that though, right? Like that's like probably something that some people might struggle with, like knowing what's good, like finding that thing that really gets you going.
Oh, yeah.
And it's actually going to turn out to be good in the end.
Oh yeah, I've seen a lot of people do that really well, like DJ Two Stacks, legendary producer. I watched him. He's actually one of the reasons I switched to using Ableton from using Logic. He was always, and for those of you who don't know, Ableton has 2 versions. It has like the arrangement window, then it has like a clip display, which kind of looks like a mixing window. But instead of where you put the plugins, you put clips. And he would like make like maybe 4 or 5 different beats using the clip window before he even switched to arrangement. And like the whole time watching him, I was like, literally everything you made, I would have just ran with from there. And he just kind of kept going and just making these different sounding things and stuff. And I was like,
until he latched onto something and then threw it in, kind of thing.
Yeah, but it's like it's that question, like which one do you kind of go with? I think it's different for everybody. It's just like a feeling, you know. And if you're in the room with someone, it's like kind of like, oh, that's the one or whatnot. Like and this another example recently. I've been making black metal with my buddy Aaron Wallace, aka Darksiders, here in Carson City, and he's a hardstyle DJ, but we actually been known each other since we're like 14, bonding over black metal, and we were finally kind of making some shit. And he's playing guitar, and he kind of has like a punk rock kind of style. So I would like pull up a couple drum loops and, you know, try to get him like kind of like playing along to something, riffing on something. And then I just immediately start recording it. And we were trying to get him to record this riff, you know, the very first riff just to go off of. And the way he played it like, you know, 3 or 4 times to get it right twice. And at the very end of his last take, he kind of like, just like moved his hand somewhere weird and like played a little weird, and just to like kind of like whatever, you know. And like when I was listening to the takes, I was like this little thing, you're like these little 2 bars you're doing at the end of here, like this is what, like do that again. And so I had him doing that, and like that became the song. Not the
he would have thrown it out as a mistake if it were up to him, right?
Yeah, but I was like, no, that's a cool little thing right there. Like let's hone in on that, and that became the thing. So it's like, I don't know, that's that's why repetition is so important with this stuff, is because you need to do it a lot of times to see like what all you can do. If you make your first idea and then all you do is work on that first idea, maybe that idea is not what it is, but also all the time you're pouring into that one idea is limiting whatever idea can come later on or next, you know? And that next idea is also random. Like if you sit down, like let's say you make a song, we all get off this podcast and we all write a song, right? Let's say you delay it by eating first, you know, that song you wrote before eating and after eating is going to be different. Or let's say you say, I'm just going to go to bed early and wake up and do a song. It's not going to be the same song. Like every time you sit down to do anything, it's always going to be different. So that repetition to me is really important, because you're discovering like what else is there at that time. And you never really know which moment is going to be the moment that's like the one that like, you know, really kind of like gets you going, you know? So that's like the whole thing is like,
can't be too anxious.
What do you
with
go
that
with?
Sort of mindset though. Like, oh, I'm losing all this time, all these riffs I'm not making. Every single second he's like, oh shit, another 5 riffs gone down the drain.
I'll never get back. Could have been the one.
It's a big thing that I had to learn personally. Like I had a hard time letting go of like a riff that doesn't serve the song or whatever. Because for example, I love this part so much, doesn't fit at all. It won't work. And I kept trying to fit it. And every single time I would show it to like a friend or whatever, and they would be like, it's cool, but do you think this part? And I was always like, oh, like it just doesn't work. And now it's completely different. I'm going to instantly, I'm going to know it. I'm like, I have absolutely no problem literally throwing it away.
I think a lot of people have a hard time with that, with letting go.
Like, I don't care anymore. Doesn't work. Even if I just spent 30 minutes on the freaking drum part, doesn't work, gone. I restart, and I swear to God, most of the riff that I really like or stuff that I really like, it was an accident. Like I copy paste a drum part that wasn't supposed to be there. Somehow I heard something and I'm like, holy shit. Oh my God, what if I would do that? Completely change everything. So like the biggest thing for me was to always keep an open mind, even if it's weird at first, even if like you thought this was the biggest part of your song, if you have to throw it away and you feel that that's the right thing, just do it. And so far it's working better for me because I had a hard time letting go. I was trying to fit in my mind. Every song had to get every aspect. I need the two-step. I need this. Like kind of an Avenger, whatever thing that every thing needs to be there. And it's so stupid. Like you can do more than one song, dude. You don't have to fit everything in there.
A good Thanos snap before a breakdown. That could work.
That could be cool, but like it's so stupid. Like I would finish a song and I would be like, yeah, I wanted 3 2-steps. I have 2. Like what the hell? Like just feel it and do it.
I'll fuck with you even more. It's sometimes like there's so many stories of like the throwaway shit. Someone hears it and be like, no, that's it. Just like the story I just kind of told you guys. But like I've written songs I thought were shit, and then when I share them with someone who I trust to like give me good feedback,
like
they're like, no, this is the one
15-song album you're not gonna put out.
Yeah, exactly. But someone be like, no, like you're like, I'm thinking about throwing away this song. I don't really like it. And like, no, that's my favorite one, kind of stuff. Or like, I think like Rick Rubin has a good example of that when he was doing the Chili Peppers, when they were like, they wrote all this music that they wanted to do, and then they wrote like some stupid ass shit that was like they hated, and Rick Rubin heard it and was like, no, that's your sound right there. Yeah. And then that became a sound, so it's, I don't know, it's there's a concept of like I don't know if this is totally applicable, but it's like failing forward, where like sometimes you just got to eat shit a bunch of times until you figure out like how to do it the right way. Or like I don't know, it's just there's so many weird stories about how these things come together. Like I'm sure you guys are familiar with like the David Bowie Queen song, Under Pressure, has that little guitar riff, din 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 din. It's like I think that guy was like screwing around the studio one day, and they're like, oh, what's that? And they like wrote the song, and then they went to go record it, and he forgot it, kind of thing. But it's just like stupid stuff. Like, I don't know. It's fun to apply that to any genre too, especially metal. It's like you can get so technical and write these very virtuoso, crazy ass metal songs.
I think a lot of metal musicians get lost in that trap specifically. Like they want to be like a musician and show off their technique and all these, ultimately just limiting barriers to just writing cool shit.
I think ultimately is to understand that you don't represent everything and everyone. Like maybe in your mind, it's not this or it's not that or whatever, but what if like that's literally the stuff that resonates the most with everybody and you just don't know it. So I think it's great to have an outside perspective. It's super stressful as well because it happened to me a few times that I was like, super stoked about something, like extremely stoked about something. And I have very honest friends and I was like, and I could look at them and I'm like, they can't lie. They're just like, I don't know, dude. And on the other side, sometimes I was almost shy to show something and they would be like, dude, I think you've got something. So I think you're right. I think sometimes we're not the best judge and you have to let go a little bit and just, maybe it's better than what you think, but it's always hard to tell, I guess.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, it is really. And most bands, like I was listening to an interview, you probably saw that, but like Bad Omens, their biggest song is Just Pretend, right? Their radio song, whatever. They did that as a joke. Like they said like, what if we do a butt rock type of thing? And it's their biggest thing. And I think it's like platinum or something. And it's everywhere. They did that as a joke to see if they could do a radio song.
There's so many stories like that, man. It's crazy. Who were we talking to the other day? Another one of the episodes we did, someone was telling us how it was like, we were thinking that this was our throwaway song. And
oh my god!
And it was like their manager or someone, they like sent it over. It's like, oh, that's gonna be the single, and the band was kind of like, okay, we trust you, but like we don't. It's Finish Him by My Burial. It was just kind of like the whole band was kind of like, okay, whatever.
It's the guy who did their video. Was like, I think we should do this song. They were like, really? Okay. And it's like the second you think about
that made them go viral.
If you think about By My Burial, you think about Finish Him and that freaking video. So I think it's rare that a band would be like, this is going to be your big song. And this is what happened. I think the only example, maybe Queen. I think Queen knew about Bohemian Rhapsody. Like if you watch the movie and stuff, like they really insisted that this song would be like their single, whatever. But I think there's very few example of that. I don't think we have like 3,000 example of that. Most of the time it's a song you didn't care about. Everybody resonates with it and it's like, it's super big and it's your song. Papa Roach with Last Resort. And
I mean, I think it's following intuitions kind of, like you can follow your own intuition or you can follow someone else's intuition who you trust. Like that's like what Rick Rubin's whole thing is. He's just got a really strong intuition. So people just trust his intuition on shit.
He was like openly like, I'm not like the greatest at any of these things, but he had the vision, he could feel it.
He knew how to bring it out. He knew how to coach and guide certain things and whatnot. Tom Petty had a little bit. He actually worked with Rick Rubin too. I don't think this is related to Rubin, but Tom Petty was like supposed to do some like Tonight Show, and they were like, "You need to play this song." And he's like, "No, I'm going to play this song," and like he just like fought him and said he'd do the song they wanted to, and then played like the different song live, and he's just following his intuition, So there's I don't know. That's kind of the thing. Learn to, and you develop your intuition by making mistakes too.
By doing by seeing what works, by seeing what resonates, by like seeing how you feel it, like all these things. Yeah,
exactly. Like let's say you're like, oh, I think I should do this, and then you do this instead, and then you immediately feel like you should have done what you did before.
That's still a signal. That's something, right? Like it's an extra data point.
Exactly. It should strengthen your gut going forward. So every time you make a mistake, you need to acknowledge that it's you just need to reinforce your intuition. So, either you were wrong and you thought you were going to be right, or you thought you were going to be right and you were wrong. And then you got to learn how to like Next time make a better decision on something. That's like just life shit.
That not everyone has.
And I think it's also encouraging what you're saying, because it kind of means don't be scared. Like if you want to release music and whatever, just go for it, do it. What's the worst thing is going to happen? You release a song, it's not resonating with that many people. You're going to get criticism. People tell you to
go kill yourself on the internet. I guess that's a thing.
Yeah,
but.
Exactly. Go do another one afterwards if you don't like it. And even if you do like it, you're going to do another one.
Exactly. And also, someone pointed out in the chat that Bohemian Rhapsody was 8 at first, and I do want to say something. It doesn't mean that because it's not instantly love, it doesn't mean it won't work later on or whatever. Like if you really feel something, sometimes people are just not ready for it. And at some point they're going to praise it.
No black metal song is going to get radio play, so
Probably
you can't really judge it based off of the public opinion.
No, but I'm thinking more, like bands back in the days, like it's always my example, but like bands like Limp Bizkit would get laughed at, and now they're considered as legends right now. So it's like, it's just, and the very same people who were laughing about them now are listening to them saying, oh yeah, I always loved them. So like there's also this thing like, it doesn't mean, it's not because it's instantly it's not like a classic or whatever, doesn't mean it's not good, is what I'm trying to say. Like if you really believe in it and to your core and your band is proud and everything, like
it's funny because like if you make music, you're inherently sensitive, right? But it's like, don't be so sensitive, just like do the fucking thing. Don't get so sensitive about what other people think. Just like, you're already sensitive. Just do what you need to do.
People get really, really, really attached to their art. It's like, it's such a common trope of a musician.
I think it's because you feel vulnerable, because you put so much of you into it that like when somebody,
but it's like romanticizing it, like it's because ultimately it's like,
it's just a song,
but not really. It's a song. It's not, it's not your blood. It's not like, objectively speaking, but I think it's just.
You're gonna learn also how to laugh at, like it helps when you can laugh at yourself more. Like nothing is really that bad. Like how many times I sent you like a comment on my YouTube channel and I'm laughing because like it's just funny. Like I'm responding to it, but in a funny way. Like instead of taking it like, oh my god, this person hates me. Like just go like just go with it. Like sometimes it's funny. Someone said that I look like his detention desk at school, and I just laughed. Honestly, I thought it was a good one, and I thought it was good. Like I'm not pissed. It was just funny, and so I feel like the more if you give power to people to get to you, it's gonna work. But if you don't. If you just do your thing and you're like, okay, you can hate it if you want, and you kind of detach yourself a little bit, everything's going to be fine. It's if you care so much. Oh my God. Random guy 14666 on the internet said that I had too many breakdowns in my song. Like, honestly, who cares, man? Like, just do it if you want. So I think there's that also. Like, if you release something, be prepared. It's impossible that everybody's going to know it. Even if tomorrow the New York Times would say it's the best song ever, some people would say it's terrible. It's just part of it. So
you've I guess kind of practiced that since like a really young age, right? Like Cameron, like if you think about the amount of videos you put up on YouTube, like doing the daily vlogs and all these things, like you were pretty consistently, I guess, putting yourself out there. Like, is that anything you've really thought about in that sort of process?
Yeah.
In the same kind of right of like just putting shit out there?
Yeah, and I'm curious also if you got a lot of hate. Like that's something I'm very curious about. Like,
I was vlogging before vlogging. It was like no one was doing that shit. I got into like watching YouTube through like Casey Neistat daily vlogging. That was like 2015. You were doing this shit like 2009.
Yeah, early
type shit, like, and like daily, like not like, it was every day for real. I don't know. I'd be curious to hear a little bit about that, like early videos and that kind of process, I guess, like why you were doing it maybe, or goals or anything you had with that?
I didn't have any goals. I mean, I kind of did, but they're funny. The way I got into it was, I had my YouTube channel, and I only could use my webcam on my computer, and then I got a MacBook, and I was like making videos using the webcam, but like using the MacBook like a video camera.
The MacBook places, yeah.
Yeah, like shooting videos where you're holding, with iMovie open. And I was like, you know what, we should probably get a camcorder and start making videos. And it wasn't to like necessarily make like a YouTube video or something, but it was just I liked shooting video. And I got it.
There's
for
still
Christmas
like a challenge to do it every day, though. There's like some motivation behind it, I'm assuming.
Well, it's funny because I don't remember what prompted me to do it every day. But I think like immediately I was like, I'm just going to do this every day. I can't, like, cause I named the channel Kim Every Day as I started, as I made the very first video. But I don't remember
you're like, oh, fuck.
Yeah. But it was like, I'm surprised I didn't just like put it on like my main channel and then later on be like, you should do a vlog or something. I think I just was like Christmas Day. I was like, this is so funny. Like I'm just like filming like every little stupid thing. And I just like, it was just routine. I didn't really do much like the process was, and this was also before we had iPhones. Like I had an iPhone at the time, but there was no social media on it. Like you couldn't really, there was no apps or anything.
It was an iPod almost.
Yeah. You could browse the web and stuff. But yeah. So it was like kind of fun to be on YouTube. Like people kind of like when you took out a video camera, like people were like, ooh, like what's that? Like now you're taking a picture. People are like, get it. Like, yeah. I don't want to be on the internet. That's what people say when you pull out a phone or something now. So the attitude was a lot different. And the process was I would bring a video camera with me throughout the day. Maybe I would have some kind of pretext for like how to edit something. Like I'd film something, I knew what I would do with it, when I was editing. But pretty much the editing was very quick too. I would shoot random things, and then when I edited, it was just like kind of like just go through and clip things down or clip things out or whatever. It wasn't like this like production.
Take highlights
really.
Or whatever. Like it was yeah. Let's see what's good in here. Slap it together. You were adding like texts here and there, but it was never anything super crazy.
Yeah, and you get like little running jokes or just things that like this would be funny to do or make fun of like your friend. Like you'd freeze frame it on like the stupidest thing and just like say something dumb underneath.
The MTV era with like that's kind of what it's reminding me. Like just a bunch of like. It was so cool because it's like if you're a fan of a band or something, you were in their element, like in their goofiness and stuff. So I think that's, it was, at least for me, like I keep seeing that studio updates and stuff like that were amazing because of that. Like social media were not there. So seeing your favorite bands, but just like being stupid and goofy together was so cool because you don't, it felt like you get to know them. But dude, if I'm honest, you were ahead of your time because as Dom said, no one was doing that literally. Like, I don't think so.
Yeah. I think my like long-term goal with it was just for documentation. Like I kind of like thought it was cool. Like, I don't know. I think at the time I was like, I'm just going to do this forever. And then I was like, it'd be cool just to look back and just be like every single day you could just go back and like rewatch or revisit. And it's funny because I never really watched them much.
That's what I was going to ask. Like, do you even ever watch them? Right? Like, it's like an idea that we have. I've kind of went through the same thing, but I'm not someone who like goes back and watches old videos or old photos or anything like that. Sometimes I'm taking a photo with my camera on my phone and I'm like, why am I even taking this photo? I'm probably not going to look at it ever again.
Yeah. I mean, I'd probably like engage with the video momentarily, mainly for like the community aspect, because there was like kind of a live feeling to it where like you'd post a video, there'd be comments on it, that's like your community, and then you just keep doing it kind of thing. But there was it's like every video has to be like 10 years old for me to go back and rewatch almost, where it kind of has like that, oh, okay, cool, like that was cool, I filmed that. or whatnot. But that was kind of the vibe. It's actually like when I got more into music.
It's like a good wine or something. It's like you need to wait for the proper.
Yeah, gives that hindsight where it like becomes nostalgic and it actually becomes like a good memory or something. But when I got more into music, I mean, it's funny thinking back because it was a really good music tool. Like this whole like feedback thing we're kind of talking about earlier. Like I would share a lot of what I was working on or a lot of like processes I was going through and just like put it out there and you get feedback on it or just like, you know, whatever you're looking.
Well, even encouragement could be like, oh, okay, people are digging this. Cool. It's kind of extra motivation maybe.
Or, when's it come out, you know, or exactly. Like a little direction or whatever. And it was instant, which is cool. I mean, you get that now too. I think that's like one of the benefits of like Instagram and TikTok and stuff is like, you can pretty much, you can make something and post a clip and see if it like how it feels, you know. It's not like you're looking for someone to be like, oh my God, this is the best thing I've ever heard. It's more so like how you feel based on just like putting it out there. It's just a feeling itself that kind of tells you something. Like you ever like show someone exactly. Like you show someone some music and like without even like if you show someone a mix you're working on, you know, you think it's good. And then it's the second, like it's playing for 2 seconds with them. And you're like, oh yeah, this mix sucks. Like it's not, it doesn't feel the way I want it to feel with someone else in the room kind of thing. Yeah. So it had a little bit of that, which is, you know, funny. But when I got more into music, especially like when I started touring a lot as a DJ and stuff, it just was like a chore. And I was like not doing anything. And that was another thing too, is like as I got older and you get
less and less exciting.
Less and less exciting. My social circle got smaller. I got more and more isolated. It was like, what do you want me to do? Like, how many days in a row can I film myself?
Things almost like, you're like, okay,
this is what I did today.
Find a random pretext that's made up. Like,
exactly. I didn't film much today because this is all I did today, you know, but now you're making a video just to make the video. And it's funny too. Like there was a point too where I was getting a little older and I was kind of like, my mind was maturing and I was thinking about different things. And I was kind of like realizing how much I didn't have figured out. And I realized that there's a lot of people that looked to me for like inspiration, and I didn't want to inspire people because I was like, I don't feel like I have the shit figured out really, which is funny because like that's true. But even before that, when I was about that, and it was the term influencer didn't exist, so you didn't think of yourself as an influencer doing this stuff. And I'm saying that in the literal like, you know, Latin. This word means this kind of thing, not like a yeah. But it was great when I was young because it was influential in a good way. I was young, I was upbeat, I was like pretty clean cut, I was friendly, I was like doing the things I wanted to do. And, you know, my attitude was perfect. Like the way I felt about how I wanted to do things, how I treated people, how I was with my friends, how like I would have like kind of a vision and execute on it. Like that was all proper.
A good balance.
Yeah, that was good stuff. That was good stuff to kind of contribute to a lot of people. But then at a certain point, I don't know if I lost that or what happened, but maybe that probably wasn't a good time to be influential. And I think I kind of knew it inherently that like you had a little bit of influence over people and maybe you should like dial it back until you kind of feel like you could be positively influential on people again.
Being responsible about the responsibility that you have.
And again, this all happened before the term, like I probably stopped vlogging in like 2013. And like, I don't know when the term influencer became a thing.
I was later than that. It was later than that. I mean, the first, like we've spoken about that. I feel like the first influencer without calling them influencer would back in MySpace, you know, like the scene, whatever, people getting more traction. And for some reason they were part of festival without being artists or something. They were just there and people would go and buy merch, I guess. But
hell yeah.
You know, like people, whatever, like Jeffree Star, I don't know, like people were just like, you could be famous for just you're there and you're part of the scene, but we wouldn't call them influencer. I think it took more time. And I had like an Instagram
thing, like influencer.
Yeah, it was later on. Came up,
a Zoomer thing.
Later.
And you know, lifestyle, social media type of stuff.
And I think no one wants to call them. So like, I don't want to, like some people reached out to me and brands, you know, to represent like and I understand they're using that term, but every single time, like I'm No, I'm not that. I'm not an influencer. That's not what I'm just a dude. Like I'm just posting. And but I understand why they're calling it that. But there's a stain to that term. But I'm curious, Cam. By the way, during your years, because Disfiguring the Goddess really blew up at some point with like the video we're talking about and stuff like that. In terms of offers, like sponsors or whatever, labels and stuff like that, did you receive like a lot of those? Were you in contact with people like that? I'm just kind of curious if it started, kind of, receiving message from companies, wanting to take it further.
It was kind of mixed because I think when like a lot of stuff was going on, I was really doing two things at once. And then there was kind of a mix of those two things occurring at the same time, where like I was doing electronic music and then I was doing metal, and both were like kind of hitting at the same time. And like the hot thing was electronic music, and the metal thing was very strong. But you could see the longevity in metal too, about how people like when they listen to metal, they listen to like the same shit forever kind of shit. Where like in dance music, it's like it's very easy to like listen to dance music in college and then like, not listen to it later on. Sure. It's like a very current kind of thing you got to keep up with. And I think it holds less kind of replay power. Value. Yeah, exactly. Less staying power.
Yeah.
So I did both those things, and it's funny.
Especially
like,
you were talking dubstep, right? I mean, like that was like, especially
dubstep,
at the time,
drum and bass, EDM,
was like
house. It was all
of a fad more than anything else at that time specifically.
Oh yeah, it's funny because some people are a little out of the loop of dubstep, and dubstep is like it's never been bigger right now. It's crazy. Maybe that doesn't have the same like pop sensation where like Britney Spears is making like a dubstep song type of like fad, but those festivals and the culture is like
Still
the biggest things out there, yeah.
Yeah, it's not as like
revival kind of thing, because I remember back then Skrillex, whatever his first song. There's a song I still remember. There's Monster in the name and Diet Coke or something. Whatever. He came in with like
Sprite, but yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Sorry, what did I say? Monster. Yeah, my brain.
No, you said Diet Coke, but
you're on it. It was Scary Monsters and Nice Spirits.
Okay, I remember listening to that.
Diet Coke.
It was my version. It was a different thing. But no, I'm kidding. But yes,
the
I remember
Skrillex at home.
Yeah, exactly. we have a Skrillex at home. But my friend showed it to me in the car, and I do remember thinking it was super sick. Like I think there's a girl yelling, and then and I remember my friend told me, dude, this is the new kind of breakdown. And I remember that specifically, and it became really big with like also, I think back then Bring Me the Horizon did a, remix of their album. Dubstep was trying to be big, but I didn't really follow. I'm just curious to know, did it kind of fade away for a while and then it's kind of a revival? Now dubstep is big, or it just always been there and it always stayed big? I'm just curious to know.
Well, this is like a whole nother thing we're getting into now. Like this is like a whole nother thing. So like
it's another
dance
big
music. Yeah. Dance music has like always been a thing. And the styles that kind of originate with dance music are more popular than ever and big. There's obviously different scenes grow at different rates or decrease at different rates. So like, but kind of like in a global sense, it's like house music, techno, drum and bass, they're all like huge. And house music is like
probably one of the more
having a moment
kind of
techno's
styles,
kind of techno's kind of having another moment right now and probably be a little more popular in the next year or so. But like dubstep was kind of like a newer genre of that, and it's very progressive in nature because the sound design aspect was so flashy. So I think a lot of what caught on in the States was like not really the fundamental of what makes it a dance music, but kind of the flashiness of whatever the sound design was being used. And that's still, in my opinion, like a major problem with a lot of dubstep is like it's so progressive and influential in itself that it doesn't know how to like stay the same for very long. And I think that's kind of like hurt that a bit compared to like how techno sounds very similar to almost how it sounded like 20 years ago. I mean, it's there's new tracks coming out all the time, and like there's the production style has gone up, but like the fundamentals have not changed. And
the intensity is maybe a little more like it's changing always. It's super intense.
That'll like kind of start its own subgenre and whatnot. And dubstep's had a little bit of that too, but it's just been a little more rocky to kind of keep under the same roof. And there's the North American scene and there's a global scene for dubstep, and then now kind of like the OG dubstep sounds are getting popular again, which, they're calling, for a while, originally it was called dubstep, and then they called it deep dubstep, and now it's just being called 140. And even in that realm, there's like a bunch of subgenres and styles that exist. So it's like, festivals that are available in dubstep.
Yeah. It's all about the metal subgenres and subgenres.
Yeah.
Dude,
so it's very similar.
Crazy. Yeah.
But there's festivals, right? Like back in the day, you'd never have like a large festival that only played dubstep, and now you have a bunch of them. And then even like on the whole metal thing, like I remember when I was doing dubstep and metal, but I was I kind of combined them quite a bit, a few times, like by doing remixes for metal bands, or like maybe I had guitar on like a dubstep song or whatever.
Yeah, and
but
Commissioner.
Yeah, exactly. But like there was I remember early on there was like a little bit of like from the actual like dance music scene where it was like, oh, you should get Big Chocolate in this. And some people were like, yeah, let's bring him in. And so I played like Movement Music Festival and Ultra Music Festival and some kind of more acclaimed like electronic music festivals in the States.
Did you enjoy that a lot? Did you, had a blast? Was it like more stressful? I'm just curious, like in terms of experience, how it was at first for you too.
So those were kind of like my first dance music experiences, and dance music has a way different culture than metal, where like metal, you can get into it like kind of what we're talking about before, where like you just feel like you're a weirdo and you're just listening to metal and you're developing your taste. Dance music is really about being like around other people listening to it. And there's like a whole kind of culture around that. And there's different cultures around that and all these different things around it. And that was like my first experience with dance music, was like playing these festivals, like Movement Music Festivals, like iconic Detroit techno festival, primarily. And they had like a trap on a stage one day. And that's where I was playing it. And that's when I like saw other DJs that were playing like house and techno. And I was like, oh, this is like real DJing. This is real. Like I felt
saw
like
another side, like something.
And
outside
I was
of
tapped into it a little bit. I was tapped into it. Like I was kind of felt similar, but I never have seen anyone else actually do it, besides like maybe YouTube or something. And watching a YouTube video of like some of these events is there's no way you can experience like a certain type of music in a certain type of environment without actually being there. It like a video will not do it. And once you get it, once you get it, like once you're like kind of tapped into it, then you can watch a video and kind of be like, oh yeah, that's, but it's still not the same as being there, but you're a little more like, okay, that's
you can relate, more.
This 4 hour long techno mix, this festival is like sick. But if you didn't have that taste for it, which always comes from an experience, it never comes from listening to it. I mean, I listened to it growing up and got into it. Like I listened to trance, drum and bass and stuff, but like I was never like at
you never got it until
until I was playing it. So that's a whole nother thing there. But like, it's funny now with dubstep specifically, like it's so heavy now. And there's a lot of acts that are like literally pushing the edge of like, is this dubstep or is this like metal with like a giant, like the kick and snare pattern of a dubstep song.
Metal, whatever. Like I'm starting to see that more like it's a breakdown, but you hear dubstep in it a little bit, like
it's like the Doom soundtrack, but you kind of made it more dubsteppy and played it at raves. Like that's like a thing right now. I mean, I don't think it's developed. And here's something I'll say: it doesn't have the same energy or vibe that metal gives off, but it has the same ear candy aesthetics that some metal has, and so that's kind of what they're dabbling with right now.
I think dubstep was hugely popular with metal fans for that exact reason.
It's the metal of electronic music, kind of. Whatever.
I think there's that contrast that is in the same sense, the same kind of contrast you would get in a deathcore song where it's a blast beat or something super fast and it goes into something super slow. Like it's the same kind of ebbs and flows. I think that for me personally, when I only got into dubstep while it was hot, at the beginning, I don't know if it was the beginning, but whatever it was.
The North American
Diet Coke beginning.
Yeah.
Whatever Diet Coke came out.
Yeah.
But I loved it for the same reasons I loved metal. It was that same intensity. It was that same contrast. It was it was those things that I found a lot of similarities in dubstep that I did to
and there was
heavy
this
music,
heaviness to, like when you it felt heavy, when the dubstep, when the drop hits, like it was.
I'm surprised there weren't mosh pits.
There is now, dude. Now it's like that's a huge
ninjas though.
I'll
crowd killing.
I don't know.
No, not like that. I'll send you some. I'll have to send you guys some stuff that I'm not necessarily into, but I'm aware of it, and I'll show you guys some stuff that's like this is happening right now on like a pretty large scale. But the funny thing about like me getting more into dubstep, because I had like people in high school show me dubstep, or like when I was on that tour with Burn the Masses, like the Annotation and Autopsy guys were all into dubstep and stuff because it's in English. It started in England. Yep. So they were listening to like old English dubstep type stuff. And the person who actually pushed me into it was Mitch Lucker, because I was more into like electronic music. I was more into like hard style, drum and bass, breakbeat, electro house and stuff. And I was dabbling with it, but I don't know I don't know if I showed Mitch or if he showed me or not showed me, but like if he
talked about basically it, like made the connection.
He got into it, and he had a subwoofer in his car. and he was like, he started listening to it in his car. He had like a mix CD. I don't know how he got it or how we got it or what it was, but he was like trying to like explain to me like what was cool about it. He was like, no, listen to this. Like, you feel how that is like that. He's like that's like what's cool about it. And so we started mixing that feeling he was kind of going with Commissioner, and that's like what Commissioner really was. Well, Commissioner started because I remixed Suicide Silence, and he lived.
That's how you met Mitch, right?
Actually, this kind of addresses the first question is like, did you ever get offers to do anything? There's a legendary A&R guy in metal named Steve Joe, and he worked for Century Media for a while. He signed, Winds of Plague, Suicide Silence, Iris the Bear ones. He was also involved with like Knock Mystium, I think, and stuff. So he was like not just like this, like, but he just kind of saw what was going on MySpace and was like, hey, we should, like, this is legit. Like, we should sign these bands.
The Spiced Icon and
I think he signed them too. He works at Prosthetic now. He's legendary. Everybody in the industry like just loves Steve Joe. He's truly awesome. Like, no one can say enough good things about Steve Joe. He's like a saint of A&R music people and metal and whatnot. And we'll take a step back. I did a interview with Finn McKenty like in 2009.
Wow.
But he wasn't Finn McKenty then. He was called Sergeant D.
Dom was showing me, I think, of a picture of that, and it's very tough.
It wasn't that, but it was funny. I actually sent Jan a photo earlier from a video that you had about doing some creative live stuff with Finn.
That was later on too. That was like
arm, like
yeah. That's classic. So he had two sites. I mean, he did like guest articles on like Metal Sucks and stuff, but he had a website called, I think it was called like Metal, I can't remember what it was called, Metal something. It was only metal stuff, interviews and articles. And then he had a scene one called Stuff You Will Hate. And it was a really, really good blog website. Yeah, I think he took it down, but it was like, had some of the funniest shit I've ever seen in my entire life on there. It was so funny. And I didn't know about him until I met him and started to like kind of follow his work and whatnot. But he did a Disfiguring the Goddess interview, and it was really funny. And he was really highlighting. It's probably still online.
I read through those in the past few days. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that website is still on. I don't think a lot of the pictures maybe are still live on the internet, but I think the article is. And he was kind of highlighting on the fact that like, I was doing like brutal slam death metal, but I also like wasn't like this like super death metal guy. And he was kind of like painting me as like a Chad, you know? And he was like, you know, he makes like all this different types of music, and he works with like, you know, hip hop and does electronic music. And Steve Joe discovered me through that. And he reached out just kind of seeing what the hell I was about. And this is when I was living in Huntington Beach at the time. And then, you know, Steve Joe and I exchanged probably a few emails, and he's like, well, I'm going to be in LA. Like, why don't you come to the office and, you know, let's just meet and I don't know, see what you're all about. And I was like 18, 19 years old. So I was like, you know, a kid. So I met Steve, and, you know, he's kind of figuring what I was all about. He was like, well, why don't we have you remix Suicide Silence? He's like, is that even a thing? Like, could you do that? And I was like, yeah. And so he was like, well, Mitch Lucker lived in Huntington Beach, and he actually lived like, I'm not kidding you, like maybe 3 minutes away from me in a car. And so we met at a Starbucks just to kind of do the vibe check thing. And we hit it off like pretty much immediately. It was cool because I liked Suicide Silence when I was like 16. And then I kind of got out of them. I don't know. I'll have to go back and look. I don't think I showed up to meet him with the camera, but I definitely brought it around pretty quickly. And they loved it. I mean, we have a lot of great memories and videos of Mitch from King Every Day for sure. But and he loved it too. He thought it was hell funny. That's another story of how I kind of progressed more into music because of the video camera thing and because of Mitch at the same time. Really weird things just coming together. But so I did that, you know, I did the remix or whatever, but Steve Joe was basically like, he's like, hey, look, like, don't sign any record deals. Just keep making music. And I'll like kind of like give you advice as things go on, you know, and we'll just like stay posted on stuff. So I did the Suicide Silence remix. You know, it was cool. The Disengage one, the first one I did. And like 3 weeks later, Mitch called me on the phone, and I was like, I remember where I was. I was like, I was always downtown getting coffee and hanging out and stuff. And I was like, all right, I picked up, and he was basically like, hey, this remix is like pretty dope. He's like, what if we made music like this remix, but like not a remix? It was just like original music that was like this, and me and you can do it. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. So the first song we did, I can't remember which one. I had to look at the track listing for permission.
Consume.
It wasn't Consume. That was later. That was when we got more into dubstep.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember.
You had stuff prior to the EP songs?
But it was on the EP. It's one of the songs on there.
Click Click Flash was the other one you guys put out before the EP.
It wasn't the March. It was
and there's one more.
Pray for the Sun. That was the first one we did together. And I think Mitch is an underrated songwriter. He didn't like pick up a guitar. He didn't like, touch a computer, but he really, really guided like what he was hearing and what he wanted to hear out of like things. And he was very conceptual based, like Click Click Flash is like a really good thing. And like kind of the way we would work together was I would work on like the first section or whatever, and I'd show him, and he'd be like, yeah, this is cool. It kind of gives me this vibe. Like, what if we wrote a song that was kind of about this? And, the next part, have it do something like this. And then I'd go home and like work on it and come back. So every song we did was like kind of a 3-part thing of just that. And he would kind of like guide the whole process in terms of like,
kind of like a producer would do, kind of like having that overall vision for what it could be, kind of thing.
Exactly. I think he's obviously like goated vocalist and frontman. Everything about him is absolutely iconic and definition of influential on everything we know about extreme metal in terms of it being popular today. Not necessarily like the Slayer look, but kind of the more like, the whole core metal. You're
saying that to the right people. We keep saying he was like I keep saying he was the greatest.
And he's the GOAT. He's the GOAT. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. No doubt in anyone's mind that he's the GOAT. But I think one of the probably more underrated aspects of him is his ability to produce and like bring ideas together. Like he wasn't just like a frontman vocalist. He was like
super involved, like
super involved. And you can see it on stage them too, like the way he conducts, like a lot of them, there's no click when they're playing, and like everything's just like they're all following his lead and stuff on the live front. But I'm positive. Yeah, I'm positive on like the writing end. He was as influential in making those songs as anyone else was, so.
And I love his perspective also. Like I include that in my Suicide Silence video, but he said at some point, who cares about the sub style, whatever, it's heavy metal. We're doing metal, like stop calling bullshit, like all these fucking gender. It's heavy metal. Do whatever you want, but like if we play with a death metal band, that's cool. If we play with a deathcore band, that's cool. If we play with a metalcore band, I don't care. It's all metal. Like, and I really love this perspective, as opposed to people commenting like, actually it's not death metal, it's progressive, brutal, like you know what I mean? Like,
he was a true leader. He took initiative and truly kind of, I mean, it's the huge tragedy is when he died, like 2012. That's so long ago.
Died,
like,
dude.
Think of like I truly believe like heavy metal would be different because he would still
100%.
be, he would 100%. He would still be. He wouldn't stop being influential. He wouldn't stop making leadership decisions that rippled through the entire scene in these probably bigger ways than most people could accomplish, right? No matter how much he just had it. He was charismatic, he was handsome. Like when I saw him in real life, I was like, damn, like he was super tall and he was like all tatted up before that was like really a thing.
Dude, everybody,
and he was
wanted
hella
to be
nice.
him.
He was hella nice. Like he was super sweet and like calm and gentle in person. Yeah. He'd come over to my house all the time. I lived with my aunt and uncle. They loved him.
So
like,
cool.
So Mitch comes in. He's all like, he's a rock star dude. And like, it was just like super nice and easygoing. And I'd bring him in my bedroom and I'd record him. And it was hella funny. Like Mitch Lucker screaming in there. Like, 'cause he's loud too. So then, like, he leaves like, hey,
he seemed loud. Like I was watching like studio updates and stuff like that. I was like, holy shit. Like I was hearing his high pitched vocals. I was like, okay, that's not like a quiet, like he had
interesting techniques too. Like he had to, when he was recording vocals, he had to have like a bucket or something he could put his leg on.
Yeah.
So he could get
I
this
saw that
angle.
Somewhere, yeah.
And it's funny too, because like when I record vocals, there's certain sounds that I like making if I'm leaning forward or if I'm leaning back. It's really weird. But he would also, like when he would record low end sounds, he would always like, he'd have the microphone. I actually still have the same microphone we went and bought together. He told me to buy this thing because they were used on one of their records. And then I'm sure you guys are familiar with this microphone. SM7B. Comes with like a foam thing on it. Yeah. And immediately we took it out of the box in his car and he like took the foam thing and just like threw it out the window basically. He was like, you don't need this.
We might use this someday. Nah, fuck it.
Yeah. He's like, yeah. So we bought this microphone because he used it on No Time to Bleed and he really liked that engineer on that record, the guy who recorded it. So he would always like cuff his mouth when he was doing lows. So the microphone would be here and he'd be doing this. And he goes, it just adds like this compression to the vocal naturally. I always thought that was so sick.
He was creating his own effect, basically. Like kind of like. Yeah. He's adding a compression and an EQ kind of curve to the vocal he's making naturally. And like, he's not doing that. He's always using a microphone live. So he's cupping his mic live when he's doing the low. And dude, Mitch Lucker live is the most brutal shit ever. Like he sounds scary, so brutal. I think scary.
I remember almost. I saw them live when I was in high school, and this was like when when they had that EP out. This is before The Cleansing came out, and like I remember when it was like, I can't remember the tour. I think it was like All Shall Perish, Suicide Silence, and some like Light This City, which I think was like some Bay Area band. Mm-hmm. And like when Suicide Silence came out, like everybody was like, whoa, because it had that heavy metal vibe. Like they were all like wearing camo pants and metal shirts.
The rest of the guys, they just looked like dudes that play Slayer kind of thing.
Yeah. And he was like menacing and he sounded like absolutely brutal. And we were all like, this is the most brutal shit ever. But anyways, like we started doing Commissioner, and that's when we started really kind of hang out a lot. And we would be in his car. We weren't making music. We probably made music like maybe out, like we probably made music like maybe 10% or 15% of the time. Like maybe we'd record something and like the rest of the hours would just be doing other shit, or we just go do random stuff. Like I lived down the street from them. His family loved me because I was just like this like nice, normal young kid. So it was like I was a definition of like family friendly, and he had a family. So it was like I was like, we're just doing like random stuff, like going to grocery stores, eating, playing video games, just 2 friends, whatever. Basically. Exactly. So he would like try to show me dubstep, and then he was like, we should start incorporating a little bit into Commissioner. So I started like trying to learn how to produce the wobbles and the sounds and stuff. And then that's when I was like, maybe if you just like actually tried to make dubstep, you could like make Commissioner better. So then I started to make dubstep and whatnot. And then I guess the way this kind of resolves in terms of this like segment is they were going on Warped Tour in 2010, and they needed a video guy to come out and film shit. And Mitch was like, let's just bring Cameron because he films everything anyways. Yeah. And we can make music with him. So they were all like, and that was, I think, when I first met the band, because at that point I was just like Mitch's friend who was doing and I remixed their shit. So they all knew me, but I never like really like hung out.
Actually met him or
Yeah. I wasn't involved in Suicide Silence at all. It's just, I did that remix. And then I was kind of like Mitch's buddy Mitch was making music with. And so Mitch took me on Warped Tour. I think I did 2 legs of it. I did the California shit. I did some East Coast shit with them. And I brought my DJ set up, and we'd play after parties and stuff. It was really fun. There's a cool picture. I need to find it, but it's like basically like me like setting up cables and Mitch like with the microphone, like keeping everyone's attention. So like, because everyone's trying to party and do something cool.
Setting up and like actually start.
Yeah. But it was funny because that's when like Warped Tour kind of caught wind of me. And Steve Joe went to have a meeting with Kevin Lyman, who does Warped Tour. I was going to ask
if Steve was the one who put you on with Kevin.
Well, Steve went to meet Kevin about Century Media bands and having them play Warped Tour. And the beginning of the meeting started off with Kevin being like, so you work with Big Chocolate, what's his deal? And like, and like talking about Big Chocolate for a while. And then I don't think Steve told me about that, but yeah. Kevin Lyman knew what was going on that thing pretty much all the time, whether he was there or not. He and he had like so many employees on it, so he knew what was going on. Kevin Lyman, another genius and super solid guy. So Steve Joe is like calls me one day and he's like, hey, I'm looking at an offer for you to play Warped Tour right now. And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah. And so that's when I was like, yeah, let's do it. And then that's when I moved back to Nevada and just started making like a bunch of EDM basically, because I was like, I guess I'm gonna like go play
for Warped Tour specifically, or
I didn't even really think of Big Chocolate as like like an act, really. You know what I mean? It was just kind of I made electronic music for fun and just kind of I actually put electronic music out as Big Chocolate because it had so much notoriety from metal, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted people to kind of like, oh, that's Big Chocolate. He's whatever.
At least like some sort of a name to it that people recognize.
Yeah, more
already.
attention.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Kind of funnel into it. Yeah.
So after that's when I got an agent. And then shortly after that's when I picked up my manager as well, or connected and started working with my manager. And we were doing both at the same time. Disfiguring was kind of just like a project that I would just do a record every once in a while for. And we'd just, make some t-shirts and merch and stuff. But the DJ shit was the stuff we were like working on most of the time, whether it was like, doing agents production for stuff. Playing shows. Yeah, so I didn't really Disfiguring wasn't really like on anyone. It's funny because like now everyone's like, oh yeah, Disfiguring, like those records are great. But like at the time, it's like I don't think anyone that gave a fuck. Like I know like people in like Suicide Silence camp that they probably thought Disfiguring was like kind of cool, but they didn't really think much of it. Like the Burn the Masses guy is probably very similar. Like, oh, that's cool. It wasn't like anyone in metal bands wasn't really like.
No one was putting you on. Like it wasn't like no one was giving you a push or rubbing.
It was the Big Chocolate thing. Either the vocals or the electronic music side of it. It is funny though. People did know, like, I think it was the second time I played Warped Tour. Black Dahlia Murder was playing, and Trevor's big metal guy, right? Everyone knows Trevor's like this big underground, king of like underground metal. Very famous for that. And I remember, I was pretty much friendly with everybody. So like I would kind of like, chit chat with anybody. It's easy for me to approach people because I didn't really fit in anywhere. I wasn't in any kind of clique. So I just kind of wander around, and I was young and kind of.
You didn't have the rest of the band, and you didn't have.
Yeah, I'm in the metal bands, or I'm in the metalcore band. Like there wasn't like that division. And eventually, everyone on Warped Tour would mix. You'd see like the reggae guys hanging out with the metal guys
and whatever, and parties. And shit.
Exactly. Everyone would be friends by the end. But I remember, like, I don't know who I think it was the bass player in Black Dahlia Murder who I was kind of like goofy with, be a little goofy. So I'd like walk by and they'd be chilling.
They were all super goofy dudes, right? Like,
yeah. But Trevor was like, he like pulled out his iPod and he like pulled up Disfiguring, and he was like, "Is this you?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "All right, cool." Like he was like, "All right, I know who you are."
Like, I see you, kind of thing.
Yeah, I know what the fuck you're doing, Mr. DJ. So Disfiguring didn't really have a lot of shit going on. The only company I really worked with really well was TuneCore. I mean, TuneTrack, the people who make Easy Mix and Superior Drummer. I had a rep there.
You've sworn by TuneTrack since the very beginning.
I still do.
Right?
I still do. I use Superior Drummer, Easy Mix. Yeah, they're the best. Make the best products for sure. And the legendary Bill Terrell, who's no longer with TuneTrack, was one of their like big reps for a long time, and he became like I think like VP in North America as well. And we were like bros. Like we talked on the phone for like hours, probably every day. Like he was who I call when I go to like the coffee shop, and we just like talk about video games and drum and bass and Meshuggah or whatever. And so they were great. That was like my main kind of people I worked with. I didn't really do much other stuff or take advantage of really anything. I don't know. I didn't really.
Was there ever a point where you wanted like Disfiguring to be like a band that would tour or play live shows or anything like that? Like, was that ever in the back of your mind, or like once it became solo? No. Yeah,
never. I mean, even when I did the Burn the Masses tour, great experience. Burn the Masses, like, top-notch metal musicians, and Chasen Westmoreland, probably the best death metal drummer of all time.
Chasen was on that tour, right? Dude, he's by far my favorite metal drummer. He's such an amazing drummer, dude.
Yeah, dude. Even like we did that record at 20 years old.
Drummer in the metal scene, I think.
I mean, he's played with every like insane metal band, Hate Eternal, The Faceless. Like he's played with like some of like. He's just joined Brand of Sacrifice as their official drummer. And I haven't heard anything that he's drummed on. I've seen videos of him playing live and stuff, but he's just like he's the tastiest drummer of all time. And I remember back in the day.
What he writes. It's dude. I remember listening to Mind Control, the Burning the Masses album, and being absolutely blown away that metal drums could sound the way they do on that album. Like there's just there's a certain flair to it. There's like it's all the weird quirky fills and weird timings he does. He'll do things like speeding up and slowing down, like it's clearly off a track. Like I don't know, man. It blew my mind when I heard that for the first time, and he's been doing that ever since. Like the Oceano Ascendance album that he's on. Insane drumming. The drumming is the thing I love the most about that album. And it's like, he's just on that one album, but it's like, that's what makes that my favorite Oceano album. Like, despite the nostalgia for anything else.
Though, if I'm honest, like even,
it's so cool, man. He's such a good drummer, man.
Like I remember this was on Burn the Masses MySpace page. It was a video of him playing, and he had like broken cymbals and shit. And he was just so sick. That video was so inspirational to me. And then like actually like going to the studio with him and watching him play, like there's a video on my YouTube page, Argon, where he's playing drums on it. It's just like a sound check. Like he's just testing the mics and stuff. And it's just insane. And like, watching him do blast beats too.
I don't get it.
I don't get it either. Like, I mean, I'd we kind of like engage a little bit on Instagram or whatever, just like, reply to each other's shit every once in a while and just like say what up, or, Yeah, I haven't like connected with him, in that opportunity so far yet. But like, I bet you, because he was 20 when we did Offspring of Time, and he, so he's a year older than me. So he's fully developed in terms of everything about him, physically, mentally. So I would love to pick his brain on, or not just pick his brain, but just like connect and just like also watch him play drums. I'm sure he's just like insane. But yeah, I remember him like breaking down how he looks at blast beats a couple times and his variations in blast beats. It was, it's very technical, but it was very like, to him, it was like, it was so natural. And the way he would explain it was like, kind of like, you get it? And I'm like, yeah, like, okay. But yeah, he was insane. I feel like we went on a tangent a little. Oh yeah. So I was on that tour.
Kind of what we do.
Yeah, that's what we do. So it's kind of our brand at this point. Yeah.
I was on that tour with Burn the Masses and Suffocation, and the combination of like listening to what Burn the Masses was saying about the tour, and the combination of like, Suffocation was in a weird point on that tour, because now they're like, I think they're having a moment right now where they're like really killing it. The new record's great. The lineups obviously changed, like no Mike Smith, no Frank, and what's the other guy's name? The guitar player. Fuck.
I don't remember.
I can't remember his name right now either, but he's a main guy in Suffocation's history as well. And so it was like this tour was like a prime, like one of the best Suffocation lineups ever. Yeah. And, it was, I can't remember the record they put out, the one with the red cover, but it was just like, nothing about it seemed like sparked too much magic in me. So I was like, after that, I was like, I'm not going to do music. I'm going to go do something else. And then that's when I got home is when all the Suicide Silence, mainly the Mitch thing happened. And then, the Warped Tour offer came in, and that's when I was like, all right, well, let's see where music kind of goes. But, I didn't want to do metal for that reason. Basically, I didn't think metal was something I wanted to do when I got older, really. And then I had a series of conversations with different people over years where they were like, why not? And I was like, oh, it's actually like funny, because like, I think like 6 months ago, I kind of like committed to just like really focusing on metal, probably exclusively. Like I still do some other random stuff every once in a while, and there's plans to do others random stuff for a minute, but death metal is like 100% my creative priority, as in like, if it was a pizza, it would be like the tiniest slice would be for everything else, and most of it is just like, so my appetite could be easily filled day in.
Kind of like,
it just feels so natural, and it's one of the genres where I feel like I can cover the whole basis. So I feel like my creativity is like very dialed in with it. But I've thought about doing Disfiguring live a few times. There's been a couple of different ways I've envisioned it kind of like happening.
Would be sick.
It would be sick. And sometimes I play around with the idea of like, what if you worked with a label and did this or whatever. But like at the same time, I'm like, no, the first thing is like catching that flow and fleshing out shit continuously to do what you want to do, kind of like have no fear what you're doing, like whatever you think is cool, whatever you want to do, just like really push in that direction. Because I kind of feel like I did that early on. Like, I don't think it had that notoriety, like when like Sleeper and Deprive were coming out. I don't think it really had like, it may be like Circle and maybe earlier MySpace stuff too, but like, I don't think it had like that, like this is like important. But then as you've seen like the deathcore genre emerge, and like what a lot of bands have done, I think like Disfiguring was pretty influential in a lot of this stuff.
For sure.
And like, I feel like I kind of have it's not like I could like tell you guys verbally like what it is. Like I feel like I want to do next or need to do or whatnot. I just kind of have this like feeling of like, you need to do what you want to do and like not progress a culture or a genre, but really contribute to it in these ways that just inspire people to be like, oh, okay, like that's cool. Like I feel that, or I like how he's doing that, or I didn't know you could even do that. Kind of like I think with like the slambient shit I was doing the last couple of years, like I would love to see bands lean more into that and use like more samples and ambience. Their
own take on that sort of.
Yeah.
Sort of
and
groove.
It's funny because I've been getting into metalcore recently, and there's a couple bands that I've like kind of recently discovered.
Electronic and big wave of electronic in metalcore right now.
Yeah. And I had no idea this stuff was going on. And I'm like way into it. Like the two bands at the top of my mind are North Lane and Oceans Eat Alaska, or is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Like those bands are awesome. I think that's some of the most like adjacent shit from what I feel like I've been doing with Disfiguring. Not at the same level.
Is really fucking dope if you don't know who those guys are.
That's another band.
Yeah, Kingdom of Giants. They do like it's a very cinematic approach to synths. Like there's I don't know. I think it's a lot more elevated in the synth and like orchestral department than just like having a backing track just to say there's pads or whatever, or like kind of add a thing. It's very cinematic in the way they do it. I don't know. It's super cool.
I have to check it out. But like, you know, I've been heavily kind of into this stuff recently after like kind of feeling like I was self-discovering it through death metal, and now kind of seeing that there's other bands that are kind of already doing, because I was like, I hope bands do this. And then I'm like, oh, there is bands that are doing this, but they're not death metal bands. And it doesn't matter what I want to make when I sit down. It's like, it's always going to be some kind of death metal adjacent thing. So I'm just looking forward to running with it. Like the next Disfiguring record, I'm pretty proud of. I'm tracking it right now. And it's going to be, to me, kind of a kicker to like basically follow it up immediately. And I kind of want to do that continuously for a few repetitions and just see where it's at. Cause that's something you can't do with a label or a band or whatever. Like a label would want you to do.
Also is a big part of that, right? Like if you're saying you're tour, like most bands, it's like the goal is to tour as much as you can. You'll be out on the road for 8 months out of the year. Sure. Now you can kind of like do more like demo stuff on the road than you used to, but it's still not like you're not putting stuff out every year. That's impossible.
You don't have that routine either. Like I have a great routine right now where I'm able to like get in, create the creativity when I want to. And like, I do all the other shit and my sleep's great, yada, yada, yada. And then like, it's funny. Like I called my manager last week and I was kind of telling him about, we were kind of touching base the first time this year after the holidays. And I did the whole Gorehammer thing over the holidays. And I was like, Jason, like this record is, like, this project's crazy. And he was like, are we going to see Cameron Argon on tour? And I was like, whoa. I was like, relax. But, you know, in that kind of joking way. But I don't know. I don't want to like say it's never going to happen. Touring sounds like a huge commitment. Like, I think like a show or something would be nice, and kind of like, you know, team up with another band and basically like have a band do a Disfiguring set, and you know, maybe there's some teamwork going on there, but I don't think touring is something that would be the first thing I'd want to do.
Much, right? Like, especially at this point, like.
Yeah. And I've got like a life going on too. Like, I don't want to like, you know, break that momentum to do, but I want to the only way I'll do it is if life is pulling me so violently to do it, it will be the only scenario which I'll do it. And it'll probably, if it starts at all, it would be through like a one-off show or a one-off festival type of situation. But that would only, again, be the same kind of violent pull, and it would be as a result of some type of contribution that you're making. Kind of like,
if it's meant to happen, it's going to happen kind of thing. Like, if it's meant to happen, it's going to happen. Like, you won't push for it, but like if it's pushing you in that direction and it makes sense, you're going to do it probably, kind of thing.
But yeah, the life thing, again, like one step at a time. A one-off show would be a billion times more likely than a tour. You know, a festival would be a billion more times than
it's going to be sold out for sure, I think.
Well, it's funny because people like Disfiguring is funny. Like, you know, I think it would probably draw more than I would be expecting it to, but there's no reason. I don't want to do it, basically. I want to do what I was just discussing, where you're in your zone and you're contributing and whatnot and stuff like this. Like, you know, I don't need to make a band to like join you guys and get on the web and talk about what we're doing and, you know, preach creativity and positivity or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I think that stuff's super good for everybody to talk about and to, you know, ingest or whatnot, expose yourself to, I should say. So it's like you could do a lot of good into the culture and to the communities, and that doesn't involve touring and whatnot. For you know, sure. And I think there's other ends to it. Like I like on the personal side, I've got a real estate business going on right now, and like that's kind of cool. And I think that would be kind of cool to like, I don't know, like if things are going well in all things, it's like, well, how do you do that? Or like, you know, what's that like? I didn't think that was a thing you could do. Kind of in the same realm of like, I didn't think you could put a pad and a repetitive sample under a slam song. But it's like, it's like, that's where the conversations about creativity and like, you know, other aspects of well-being and maturity and responsibility kind of come into play, where like, you know, like Slambient was not me making slam, incorporating sounds. It was like this kind of a fusion of things at one time without thinking about what it would be labeled. Right. Yeah, so it's like, just continue doing that. And just like, I don't know, like it's a purpose driven thing. Like, I feel I've tried to get away from music a couple times. It's in my bones. I've taken breaks from music. I've sold all my shit. And like, eventually it's like, I'm back in it. Like now I have,
that pull was present. Yeah.
I had no shit for a minute. Now I've got 2 barefoot monitors, and I bought a quad Cortex about a month ago, and it's like, damn, you're in it. I'm borrowing I have 2 guitars I like, but I'm not really playing them right now. I'm borrowing a Solar guitar from my buddy Aaron, Darksiders, and they're sick. I really like it. It's cool because my buddy Aaron was like, I told him I got the Cortex mainly to reamp guitars, and he was like, if you ever want to borrow a guitar, like let me know. And he's like, I know what kind of guitars he had before, and I was like, oh, I'm good because I got some guitars. And he's like, I just bought a Solar 7-string with Fishman pickups and an Evertune bridge. And I was like, what the fuck did you just buy? Like, what the hell did you just say to me?
Those don't go for cheap, man. Holy.
Yeah, and those are like a newer modern thing going on. Yeah. The Fishman pickups those are a newer thing. Those weren't around. I don't think they weren't popular 5 years ago. You know, and the Evertunes.
Five they were starting to pick up, but yeah, I get what you mean. Like it's
yeah, I never came in contact with them. I wasn't I love playing guitar, but I haven't been like a big guitar guy where like I'm like have a bunch of guitars, you know what I mean? Like Colton's kind of similar
about the gear and all that shit. Yeah.
Yeah. Colton's kind of similar in that regard. Like he's got like 10 guitars and stuff, but he's not one of those dude that has like 20 guitars and he's so specific about it. He's like, yeah, I have this 7-string Iceman I like, and I
nitpicky about the specific things that each one can bring out and stuff like that. It's just like, let's pick up this guitar, let's just play.
Yeah, this one feels good, kind of shit. And so, but when I borrowed the Solar, so it just feels good, and I've only played it through a quad Cortex, not an amp sim. So like, you really feel it when you play it with an actual amp.
Maximum mileage out of it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say. I mean, I know an amp is different than the Cortex, but damn, the Cortex, it feels like an amp. Like you really feel the guitar again. So like refreshing myself with that has been fun. But yeah, I'm back in it, and I'm putting out music again, and I'm feeling like really close to that edge. Not that edge in terms of like, oh, you're gonna blow up. Not that kind of edge, but my personal edge. Where like I'm riding my wave. I'm up to date with where I'm at. Yeah, I'm not bogged down by a million things I'm working on, and I don't know what to do next, and yada yada yada. Like I know exactly what to do, and it's like that's when you get that duty driven purpose going, and just push into that hard for X amount of time and put out X amount of projects, and we'll see what's going on. But that's kind of my vibe
as
right
the man
now.
Says keep going.
Yeah. Keep going. Keep going.
It makes a lot of sense. I forgot to ask. I had a random question at first. Like, I'm just curious to know who did your logo. I know it's random. I'm very curious.
The Disfiguring one?
Yes.
I'm trying to remember what he goes by now. I think it's still Consumed. Okay. Is it?
It's possible.
I saw his name is some sort of credit somewhere on the Bandcamp.
His name is Alexander Eastman.
Okay.
And he's He's brilliant. He's a legendary graphic guy. Yeah. He did Sudden Death's recent logos too, which I thought was so sick. Sudden Death is one of those metal dubstep guys. He's probably like the biggest metal dubstep guy, crossover kind of guy. And, his whole vibe, his whole imagery is like hella evil metal looking and stuff. And his music is, he got a festival somewhere in the Midwest called Summoning Fest. And it's like the whole cover is like bloody and stuff, but it's like all dubstep.
That's sick.
But Alexander Eastman did his logos, and I'm like, fuck yeah.
No, but I think like it's a big part. Like I feel like your logo of Disfiguring was like very important in the image you gave all those years. Like I feel like the logo
stretched out jumbo print on the t-shirt. That
hell
like
yeah.
Instant classic. That shit looks so fucking badass, man.
It's funny because I've been making those again. I've been having a hard time keeping them in stock.
Those good problems.
I can be making a bunch of them, but I'm kind of like waiting for like. It's funny too because like I used to have a lot of metal merch and I don't know what happened to it. I probably got rid of it or something. But I don't have any
when you
metal
sold
merch.
all your music shit, probably.
Yeah, and I've cleansed my closet so many times. Like I've gotten rid of like everything so many times. But like recently I was, I've been getting a lot more into metal. All I listen to is metal too. So it's like everything's been great. And I'm like, I need to get some metal t-shirts. So I went out and bought
I regret throwing out my old shit so much, man.
Oh yeah. There's a couple vintage tees I got that I kept. But other than that, I was like, I need more than this. So I went out and bought like just merch from my favorite bands that I listen to a lot. Like I bought an Emperor t-shirt. I bought a Dark Funeral t-shirt. I bought a Cradle of Filth t-shirt. I bought a Dying Fetus t-shirt. And they're all like of albums that I listen to that are like 15 years old.
Right. So
I'm like, then I go look at my own merch and I'm like, I would want to, if I was like doing this sweep and I wanted a Disfiguring shirt, I'd want like a sleeper cover art album or something. Yeah. So I'm like kind of getting back into like, the merch thing was never important to me. The music thing was always the important thing to me. But now that I'm like kind of riding the wave with music again and getting back into the culture again, I'm like, I need to like step up some of this, it's part of the culture. So it's like, I want to reprint certain old tees and, the logo should have been trying to keep in stock because the logo stuff is like kind of classic. It's like, it never goes out of style. It basically stands for everything. So I don't know. It's been fun.
No,
you should reactivate this. Disfiguring the Goddess printing soon. That's what's the merch offline. Back up soon with more designs.
Dude, it's like literally the same. It's funny because I feel like I'm like living a lot of full circle moments right now, where like I'm kind of coming back to how I felt when I was like much younger, and I felt like that for a minute, and just in terms of like my energy in general. But now it's kind of like the music is like getting there too. And, I feel like I'm coming into like kind of a second wind. And I feel like I'm at the very beginning of it. I think this Gorehammer record is kind of like the first, like, ooh, like, yeah, that's a clean hit. Like, and I know it was intentional. Like the whole thing was not like random. So it's just fucking stay in the cage. Keep getting those bass hits, and then talk about it, be transparent like I always was in the past too, inspire people, meet people. Like I've connected with so many dope people through music. Like so many of my friends are people I've either met through music on one side or the other. And this goes for like people who are fans of the music too. Like there's a lot of fans out there that like I've become really good friends with, cause like what I was saying earlier is like, just because I'm making music and they're listening to it or whatever they're doing in their lives or whatnot. Let's say they're not like your classic peer in the sense of like they're also an equally sized band or equally. It's like no, it's like if as long as you're into the same thing, it's like you probably very 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 similar in a lot of ways. That's not what you do day to day, but like kind of how you think and how you are. And so
all
like
fans of the same things, right?
Exactly. So I've made really good friends with a lot of fans, and I just feel like I'm like coming back into a lot of stuff, and I'm happy with like how I where my vibrations at. I feel like it's like high at a point where it was when I was younger doing a lot of the shit. You know, it's nice too, because like I'm still very young, you know? So it feels good.
True.
Like I'm in my early 30s, and like I feel like the 30s, people get in the 30s and like, oh, I'm old. Or like,
man.
oh, this. And I'm like, I'm like, this is I'm
now
not like, I feel like you're
some sort of life experience now, you know, something to back it up.
And the way I look at it too, like on a long term, like life trajectory, it's like your 40s and your 50s are kind of like your prime, you know, maybe in your 60s, you kind of start to like, you know, maybe descend a little bit and you kind of want to land a certain way or whatnot. But I think your 40s and your 50s are like, that's when it's like, that's when a lot of people do like their best work. I think in music,
you look
being
at a lot of
man's,
artists, that's kind of what it comes down to. You look at legendary producers and people in the scene outside of like the 20-year-olds just like ripping the gigs.
But that's
8
why
months
we're
out of the
seeing,
year.
Exactly.
You know, it's just different. Like
that's why we're seeing comebacks. If you look at like Ricky Hoover, he's back. He's like 37 or something. He's like thriving. He's playing with Up Sulfurs, doing well. Like we've seen a lot of comeback from. My mind was like I was at a weird place. Like in my mind. 25, 26, I was like, okay, so now it's too late to do music. Somehow in my mind, like I thought there was like an age or something. Like it's ridiculous. Like 25, 26, are you kidding me? Like even 30, 35, like there's plenty of people right now touring in the biggest death metal and deathcore bands, and they're mid 40s and they're doing super well. Like it's not true. Like it changed my old perspective. Like you would have asked me that 2 years ago when I was 30, I would have told you like, oh dude, hey, I'm like super old right now. And people look at you, they're like, are you stupid? Like it's your peak right now. Like just like enjoy, you know? So I think it's like we're very often our own limitation in these, you know, in these things. Like, oh, I shouldn't do that, or I shouldn't do this. And there's no I shouldn't. Like I'm seeing skaters like doing skateboard. They're like 45, 50. They're doing like freaking N-rails. To be fair, I wouldn't do that because now I'm scared as opposed to before. But I mean, if you want to do something, there's no, as long as you can do it, do it. That's what I would say.
Like we're not athletes, you know, we're not fighting in a cage.
No.
You know, because that has a, you know, there's a physical thing to that, right?
Have an expiry date. Others don't.
Climbing mountain, like there's certain things maybe, but music, art in general, like because I consider music as much as like, to me, it's like painting. It's like any arts, basically. Like you can do it your whole life.
All creativity, you know. I would put any type of business in creativity as well.
Yeah.
You know, any type of problem solving type of action.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that's all creativity. And I don't know. And we're in an interesting era right now too, in terms of just like where the world is at, where it's like there's a lot of unknowns and shifts going on. Where like the things that you had to do in your 30s now is different than the things you had to do in your 30s, you know, a while ago. And, you know, there's going to be consequences for whatever people decide to do with that. Because, again, like there is a momentum and there is an effect to everything you do. So it's like, you know, and it'll show itself in like these larger spans of time that almost get generational in a way.
Yeah.
When you talk about like 50-year chunks of time, it's like you're talking about like literally different groups of people that are alive at different times that are going off of like what the generations before them have built and maybe have advised and whatnot. And it's
your
crazy.
Parents at 30 years old, like it's not, you can't compare the two, right? Like it's not, it was a different time. Like,
dude, it's wild. We've seen the internet being born. Like that's weird. Like if you think about it, like when we're going to be older, like what's going to happen with the new, like just imagine which world we're going to live in. And like to look at like how fast it went since like I grew up with a Nintendo 64. Look at gaming now and what we have. Like it's crazy. We had internet with a phone back then. Like you couldn't be on internet if someone would pick up the phone. That's like we've witnessed that. So just picture, it's exciting in a way. Like we have no idea in 20 years what the world is going to be. Like it could be completely different from what I know.
And it will. We're going to see a lot of shit, you know, like you're going to, the information that's the exponential amount of information that's being created,
AI and all that stuff.
The ability for AI to process this stuff quicker and more effectively than us in a lot of ways is going to be huge. I mean, you'll see that in gaming too. You'll play a game with a bunch of bots are going to be pretty damn realistic.
Science also is advances like pretty fast, like on a lot of things. Like who knows, like what's going to be possible. Like I've seen online people now, as you know, they really have true robotic arms connecting to them, and it works with magnetic whatever, like they can move. Like I don't know in which world we're gonna be, but
you're gonna get I mean, they're already doing like chips in your brain to like do shit and stuff, but like music is always gonna sound good. Like eating food's always going to be good. Sleeping's always going to be good. Like the sunshine's always going to feel good. Like there's like some basic shit that's never going to change, right?
For sure.
You know, having kids is going to be sick. Like that's never going to like go away.
Humans on a just like on anatomical like level,
connection things as well, right? Like you can call somewhere, and I don't know about you guys, but like I'd rather talk to a human if I called in a place, right? Like there's something about human connection as well that it's always going to be.
Depends on the human, I guess, but yeah.
But I mean, like if you call a freaking place and it's just like you press a number, they don't understand, and you need to say yes, and they first somehow they don't know what you're saying, and it's the worst. But I don't call very often because I hate it. But the point is, human connection is always going to be there, no matter all the world change, I think. So because we need that. But I do believe that like it's going so fast that I think in like 15 years we're going to look at the world and we're going to be like, what happened? Like what the hell's going on? Like I'm pretty sure like
I mean, I think you could say it about 50 years ago today almost.
Yes. Yeah. I mean,
it's going to be crazy. It's a cool time to be alive.
For sure. Super interesting for sure. Yeah. Like we went from a timeline where you had to call someone to know if they're home, you know, like that was our life. Like you literally had to have all your friends' number in place and know them by heart or something. Now I don't even know people's number in general. So it's definitely, it's going to be interesting to see how it changes. We're going to see like the first whatever AI person, you know what I mean? Like in stores and stuff. Like we're going to witness a lot of things, I think.
We're going to go to Mars. I'm just kidding. I don't know.
I don't want to go there. I really don't want to.
I think that kind of like strengthens the whole idea of just like, I don't know, strengthening yourself and exposing yourself to the right kind of information in terms of like, you know, is this really benefiting you? Is this like a nugget you can use for your own life to make your own positive impact on yourself and other people and whatnot? Because all that stuff ripples around, you know, and that'll never change. So I think it's, you know, it's definitely, I mean, I'm an optimist at my core. So, you know, the whole balance of yin and yang that's constantly going on in the universe, where like, you know, there's always going to be these forces trying to balance each other out. It's like I always
the duality, kind of.
Yeah, I always naturally feel like I'm like always not pushing, but I'm always like pushing myself, and you know, my ability to connect. I want that to ripple out. So I've always felt not like I have a positive outlook, but I also have like a positive push on that positive side of the rebalancing of like, you know, the world. So I think that'll never change, but you know, I think that's just a good thing to like, I don't know.
It's all we can do.
Yeah. I mean, you can hear my limitations of even just like human language kind of stunt out at these more like these greater ideas, or it's like, damn, how do you express this type of shit, you know?
Yeah, but I also think we are like, we have our own filters to life, right? Like the same person, like I could see life right now thinking that everything is going to shit and it's terrible and it's this and it's this. And I also can live my life thinking it's a gift and it's amazing and I can do many things and stuff like that. So it's like, it comes down to, there's this duality thing. I fully agree with you. Like, I think there's this balance of, I don't know, like right and wrong, bad or whatever, and evil and good or something. But as Dom said, like there's not so much you can do except doing what you think is right and trying to maybe contribute in the positive side of thing. That's kind of what I'm trying to do as well. I like to think that. I have no clue if really that's what I'm doing, but it's you know, I feel like there's a lot of people who filters their life as like everything is terrible, and maybe by just changing a few things, maybe they would feel lucky more in certain scenarios. So you have your own filter and your own perspectives for sure. So
that goes to like the ripple effect of wanting to, you know, be positive and to inspire that positivity. And that's kind of what it comes down to at the end, right? Yeah. Like, sure, maybe not everyone else is that way, but I think everyone that's in that kind of headspace is hoping for other people to catch on as well. You know, for it to be kind of like contagious, you know?
Yeah. You want people to be just, you know, to be happy.
To connect on those bases too. Yeah. You know, it's like, you don't know what difference you can make in little ways. And I think it's, ways, you know, we're talking like these greater life things, these greater universal things, right? But even in like our own little community too, like with metal, it's like just, you know, making good metal or contributing to good metal, or like what you guys are doing with this podcast. It's like a contribution to the scene, you know. It's just like, you don't know what piece of this is gonna, like, you know, rub off on anyone in any way or at any time. It's, you know, it could be right now in this live session, or it could be, you know, 5 years later when someone watches some random video or whatever. So someone watches a video from your archives, and then like in, you know, 3 years, like some event happens to them where they're like, all of a sudden their subconscious like pulls something out from like one of these. Exactly. It's like you have no idea. You have no idea.
You don't know the impact you can, like, this week I was, because I'm fortunate enough that since I've started my YouTube channel, Finn McEntee has been really supportive. Like we've been talking and stuff like that. He's such a cool dude. Like he's been,
it's the best.
And he's been, and I'm very lucky because he gives me tons of advice and stuff like that. And like, I know like it's very valuable, right? Like he could, you know, he's charging some people, like he's selling classes and stuff, but to me, he's just kind, he's giving like advice and stuff like that. And he did a story, I think last week, and he said he was like tired of the negativity overall and stuff like that. So I took time to write him a message, and I'm like, hey dude, just wanted to tell you, sometimes we forget it, but I don't think you understand how important it is what you do. Like you offer entertainment and comfort to a lot of people. And I'm a good example of that because I was listening to his videos during difficult parts of life. And sometimes you do content, you do something, you do music, whatever it is you do, and you don't realize how valuable it is for someone, you know, until they tell you or whatever happens. But it's not, because
most of the time you'll just never figure it out,
or you're never gonna know, right? Yeah, exactly.
That's the reality. Is that
like a good example I have is like I know I always use that example, but The Office is like my favorite show, right? Like I keep, like, it's been since 2015 I'm watching that show on repeat, and I think there's like, to the point when it's annoying everybody that I know around me, but it's like, I know there's a lot of people like that, right? Like I'm not the only one. So like they were just doing their thing, not even knowing if the show would work, you know, just being actors and stuff like that. And they're offering, like, you know, for me, I was watching it in difficult moments and stuff like that. So like anything you do, even if you think it's just entertainment, music, art, whatever, like it can change a lot of things, like way more than what you think. Like you probably make a way bigger difference than what you thought. So there's beauty in everything. Like it's never worthless, I think.
Oh yeah. This has been going on forever too. I mean, this has been happening since the beginning of
always
human existence.
Yes.
And now we're a part of it, you know?
Yeah. And Cam, you said something I think is really true and kind of changed my perspective a little bit. You said that like, even today, like it's cool. It's just evolving as opposed to MySpace. Like we don't have to be bitter about it. Like I just realized something, like how things are right now. We would have loved that back then, probably, like being connected like that, being able to do music at home, but like good quality. It was the dream, basically. We would have, trip being like that, seeing your bands doing stories and shit and being so it's like nostalgia is a weird filter too. Like I'm a very nostalgic person. I'm still playing Xbox original and the 64. I couldn't be more nostalgic in life. I have a YouTube channel in which I'm just talking about the MySpace era. We have a podcast like that, but like, yes, I'm super nostalgic, but sometimes it's cool also to realize that like there's also amazing things right now as well. Like I think the way you explained it earlier was a good, was a good perspective that it's still cool, it's just different.
Yeah. Go do it, And like you guys are doing it, like, big respect to you guys with this podcast. Thanks. Like keep going.
Keep going, man.
It's so funny to us because like we have a blast also doing it. If I'm honest, Dom works very hard on because I'm terrible with like production and stuff. Like I'm doing editing for my channel and stuff, but like everything that has to do with live and stuff, like it's basically done. But like
that shit's awesome.
for like he's doing transitions and stuff. Like it's what he's doing is so cool. Like I hop off with him and I'm like, okay, let's do it. But for us, it's like we're living something so cool. We get to meet people that shaped our role, that influenced us, and that we're fans, right? So it's so cool to get to talk and to understand and to see what people were going through, and everybody's so cool also, right? I know it would be weird if somebody would just like roast us for absolutely no reason. I don't think it's going to happen, but I just like, I don't think
people
would
have
come
been pretty
here
outwardly super nice to us. For sure.
and it's so cool. Like it's just, it makes me love the scene even more, if that makes sense, so.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
100%. You'd be, I think people get some, I don't know. There's like, you think people are mean or whatever. It's like, go out and do something good and talk to someone or something. And you're probably almost always surprised,
Yeah. Get proven wrong every time.
And another, a good example, like you were talking a lot about Mitch Lucker, right? Like that's the example I always bring up. You don't have to be a dick to be a rock star and to be well known. That guy was so cool with everybody, kind. Every story I hear about that guy was nice with people, and he was still a legend. So it goes a long way. I think just be yourself and be kind with people, and you're gonna have plenty of opportunities. So
yeah, I mean, even if you're like a dick too, it's like I think that's cool as well. It's like, you know what I mean? If you hear about some rock star, it's like really bitter and mean to everybody. I'm like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, but some people it's their thing, right? Like I think a lot of people are doing that very knowingly. Like they know it's gonna, the reaction is gonna. They're just like, I'm like that. I don't give a shit. It works too, but if I'm honest, I'm a fan of people just.
Just good old regular nice dudes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's entertaining though, but yeah.
But we have to end this, man. It's been over 3 hours, man. But thank you.
Yeah.
No,
hell
yeah.
No, thanks.
Thank you so much for taking the time, man. Really, it was a really cool conversation. This was super cool to have you on, and I'll put it out there. You've been nothing but gracious with me off the stream as well. So thank you for sending me the album, all this stuff. So no, it's been a pleasure, man. It's been super cool. Thank you for doing this, man.
Yeah, it's truly an honor, dude. Seriously, like
that. It's my privilege. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for doing all this. Keep going. I know the podcast seems kind of like, how many episodes you guys done?
I don't know. We started
eighth one, but we were like live streaming for a while before, but we turned to doing guests and stuff. It was like the 8th guest we're doing.
Yeah, we started.
It's awesome. The whole thing's hell of impressive. Like I love the archive. The site's super easy, and I can go listen to old stuff on Spotify and stuff. It's great. So I'm looking forward to watching you guys grow. Man. That's 100, for real.
Thanks, man.
As you guys grow, it'd be great to come back on and see what's going on.
Sure, man. And you're going to release new music. We're going to talk about it. And maybe at some point you're going to be touring all over the world. Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah.
No, but we'll keep in touch for sure, man. Looking forward to the new music, and thanks again, man. It was a pleasure having you on.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no doubt. A connection has been made, no doubt.
Oh yeah.
Hell yeah. All right. Man. We'll see you soon, dude. Man.
Thank you so much. Peace.
Take
Peace,
care,
chat. Thank you so much. Peace.